Hello, it's me, we're back, it's time for more Talking of Bollocks, it's Bollocks time. Hello everybody, it is me, your friendly neighbourhood shouter of bollocks, it is Howard H. Smith. So, there we go, just turning it down a bit so you get all, oh, is that too much? Is that too much? There we go, I'm a little bit louder now, there we go, right, okay. So, it's lovely to be once again in your ears. As you will be able to tell, my voice is a little bit... Yeah, I have been in the studio for 9 days. Came back from Wales yesterday and didn't get the album finished. I've got to go back and do another 1.5 songs in October because my voice went. But what we got done was great. It was a really good time. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff coming out on Patreon this month. So... sign up there if you want. Howard H. Smith, patreon.com/Howard H. Smith for lots of exclusive content. But it's now time for, of course, the intro. Hello, my name is Howard H. Smith. I am the lead singer of UK thrash band Acid Rain, stand-up comedian, keithplatt.co.uk, or on social media, Talking Bollocks the podcast. You found that. It's all on social media as well. And there's the band, acidrain.co.uk. Who the fuck visits websites anymore? Search the socials. You'll be able to find all those bits and pieces. Welcome to you bollockers for returning once more. It's always lovely to have you along. If you're listening for the first time, hello. This is a slapdash fucking absolute not mess. It's not a mess. It's not an absolute mess, but it is. It's raw. It is a raw podcast for you. Okay, so don't be expecting this totally overproduced bullshit. This is me and my tiny brain losing the fucking plot for at least the next 20 minutes anyway. But I have to say, I've got to be honest with you. I always am on here. I am absolutely fucking knackered. So if the energy levels are a bit low, then my apologies. But we're in the studio for 9 days. Went to Jayce Lewis, who's producing the album. Went to his birthday on Friday. Got massively wasted, and then drove home yesterday. And I think I basically got one of those two-day hangovers. So yeah, I am. But what I lack in enthusiasm, I will be making up in content for you. Because, having said it's all slapdash and all the rest of it, you have got a 1.5 hour interview with Jayce Lewis coming up, which we recorded in the studio. So it is the finest audio quality that you've ever had on this podcast. It will be a bit weird for you. It might throw you a bit because it sounds proper. Don't get used to it because... it's not going to be every time I get a chance to interview somebody in a fucking studio. But as always, kids, what has been happening in the world of heavy metal since last we spoke? Well, funnily enough, on the subject of the Ronnie Dio hologram, there has been more contributions from Craig Goldie, who looks strangely like Meatloaf these days. Seriously, it's quite scary. Yeah, he said, oh look, the hologram isn't all about money. I mean, obviously he's taking part in it, so he would say that. And he's quite religious, is our Craig, to the extent that he manages to bring religion into everything he talks about. For instance, it all comes from love, he continued. These people don't like the idea of the hologram because Ronnie is so revered in their hearts, and that seems blasphemous to them. That's right. And then, I say this sometimes, it's a lot like when Jesus went into the temple and saw the money changers and got angry and he turned over their tables. This is a house of worship. This is not a marketplace. So in a way, those guys see us as the money changers in the temple of Dio, and they want to knock over the tables because that's a place of worship, not a marketplace. But they don't understand that the money is not the main purpose. Notice, not the main purpose. That was quite interesting there. Yeah, I mean, look, Craig, I love Ronnie too, but I think comparing him with Jesus or a scene from the Bible is a little bit over the top, don't you? Eh? I often think it's a lot like Ronnie was, a lot like Jesus. That is, Jesus H. Christ. That's a bit scary. Although this very person here was compared to Jesus, although I've been called Jesus H. Hetfield by another than no friender of the Thrash Metal Podcast, who is going to be the second interview up today. So that was almost professional, wasn't it? That was almost a nice rounded link. Next up, I mean, this is the most Kiss thing ever. Kiss are playing the final of America's Got Talent. And I really do think that's hand in glove. That right there is just perfect. I mean, it's Kiss being able to market to a whole new generation right across the country. They're going to get to see those fucking costume pricks play live on a completely different platform. They'll reach loads more people. I mean, it is an absolute marketing coup. And, hats off to them. It is a brilliant bit of business. And look, okay, Judas Priest played the final one year as well, and I wasn't giving them any shit. So I'm kind of saying, look, I think it's a marriage made in heaven or hell, depending on which way you look at it. But do you know what? It makes complete sense. And as much as I like to slag Kiss off, I think any metal band that gets the chance to cross over like that and perform to that mass talent is is going to take that opportunity. So some of you might have been waiting there for me to slag them all off, but no, that's not the case. I just think it's got to be done. There's no band out there, including Kiss, who can afford not to do it these days. So fair fucks to them. And I can't believe I'm leaving this till right. There is a live podcast in the offing. That's right, you heard me. A live podcast. It's hopefully, I can't confirm yet. I will confirm as soon as I get the chance. It's going to be on Friday, the 18th of January. I'm pretty sure about that. Hang on. I was just charging my phone, and it's definitely so. Yeah, I think it's Friday, 18th of January. Be taking place at in Camden in London at the Etc Theatre, where I did the recent spoken word thing. So it'll be about $6.50 a ticket, and it will be myself and Godless. Yeah, myself and Godless live coming at you. It should be really cool. He's over to see some band. I said, how about doing a live podcast, and he was well up for it. So I will announce that as soon as. It'd be great to see all your faces. It really would. Just rabid self-promotion at this point, really, isn't it? Just rabid self-promotion, but it could be worse. I could be Jamie Jaster. In his interview with Corey Taylor, he breaks off, because he inserts adverts into the interviews as well now. He's been doing that for a while. And it's not so much that it's an advert, and I'm not going to give oxygen to the company that he is advertising, but suffice to say, it's an online bookie. And Jamie even falls into the trap of going, people are always asking me the odds about sporting events and things like that, and I always say, use these guys. It's like, no, Jamie, that doesn't happen. You haven't been asking that. If you want to hear how adverts should be done, listen to the Bill Burr podcast, because he argues, he gets their standard text, and he argues with it. He says, say something about how you use this product. And he goes, no, I'm not going to fucking lie. I haven't used this product, but I've checked it out and they seem legit. So that's why I'm doing the advert. So when you hear those podcast adverts and you wonder how come it seems that the person who's hosting the podcast uses all the shit they're advertising, has been to all the places, it's fucking bollocks. That's what's in the text. And Jamie's fallen for that and said, and it will, in the descriptor, it'll say something like, now tell an anecdote or make up an anecdote about how you use our product and how great it's been. Please give an example. And it's just like, wow. People are actually doing that, and podcast listeners out there are thinking, "Oh, wow, yeah, that's just the guy uses that service, and he's pushing it." No, not at all. Absolutely disingenuous is the word. You won't get any of that on here, because you're never going to get advertisers on here, because I say cunt way too much. And advertising cunts don't like cunts who say cunt a lot. It's as simple as that. And I don't know why. True story, my 82-year-old mother said to me last year, Howard, what problem do people have with the word cunt? Well, it was a little bit of a surprise, I got to be honest. And she said, surely once you've said it once, that's it, isn't it? Right. So there you go. Anyway, yeah, so a little anecdote about my mother saying cunt as well. Must run in the family. But so yeah, no cunting adverts on this cunting podcast. This cunt is never going to do some cunting adverts for advertising cunts, for cunty products, cunty services, and all that cunting business. It's just not going to cunting happen. And I wouldn't cunting stand for it, no matter how much cunting money they'd cunting give me to cunting do their cunting fucking shitting cunting adverts. I think that's probably enough there. I've made a point, really, haven't I? I don't know what kind of point I'm making. That I'm a cunt. There you go. That's put a nice little full stop on that section, hasn't it? And please feel free to take that section and make some stupid little music jingle out of it. That would actually be really cool. If anybody out there fancies doing that, please do. Okay. Right now, next up is so far my album of the year, and completely and totally unexpected. Pin your ears back because I'm going to bore you. Okay. And when I say it was totally unexpected, it wasn't just totally unexpected that it's going to be album of the year. It's totally unexpected that this artist would release an album less than a year after their last album. And not only that, but dropped it on a Thursday without anybody knowing there was anything coming. That's right. Some of you will have already guessed that smashing straight in at number one so far of albums of 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Eminem Kamikaze. It is fucking unfucking real. How a guy in his 40s and sober can sound so young and so stoned and so angry is an absolute fucking miracle. I can't stop playing the fucking album. It is unbelievable. And some of the flow on there is because I'm a fucking hip hop fucking genius. Me, I know all about it. No, I don't, obviously. It's just, I mean, being a white guy, being a white English middle class guy in his mid 40s. Okay, I get about 80% of it, but then I've had to go down the YouTube rabbit hole and start basically watching hip hop channels and watch them breaking it down to get all of the extra bits, because I can hear the right, but there's cultural and social references in there that I don't get. Because because I don't live in the States, and also because I'm not part of the hip hop community, and there's even more depth in there than I was ever aware of, and that last 20% was just absolutely perfect. And funnily enough, I got it from watching hip hop channels breaking his music down, and on the album, Eminem slags off hip hop channels that break people's music down, which is fucking brilliant. It is outstanding. I mean, put it this way. 2 weeks before I'm going to go into the studio to lay down vocals on the first Acid Rain album for 28 years, am I listening to my favourite thrash bands? No. Am I listening to my favourite singers? All, for inspiration, to get the cogs whirring? No. For 2 weeks straight, it's all I can do to not play the Eminem Kamikaze once a day. Absolutely fucking brilliant. And then, how weird is this? I get down to Wales. Before I get to Cookies, who I'm going to be staying with, our guitarist, I call in at Sainsbury's to do a shop because I'm going to be there for 9 days. So I'm do a big old shop. I wandered down one of the aisles because I've been driving for 3 hours and I just kind of got into a bit of a spacey head, and I found myself in the fucking nappies and pet food aisle at one point. Don't know what the fuck that's about, but anyway. I found myself in the music aisle and I was walking past the CD chart and there was one copy of Kamikaze left. I mean, I downloaded it straight away as soon as I heard it. And I was just one copy of the CD left, and I was just like, well, that's obviously for me then, isn't it? I just plucked it off, stuck it in the trolley. I was listening to it to and from the studio as well. Although every morning on the way into the studio I recorded a video, which is all up on Patreon. Anyway, enough of that. I just could not stop playing it. I still can't stop playing it. I go for a few days having not played it, then play it again, and I just fall in love with it all over again. I hear little bits and pieces that I hadn't heard before, and it is so fucking... He's just out there. He's had a go at everybody. Because funnily enough, when I heard it was out, I was thinking, hang on, that's less than a year since the last album. And then I thought, oh, I've got that CD in the car and I've only played it 3 or 4 times. And there's a lot on the new album about how people slated his last album. And he's just fucking gone for it. I mean, don't listen to the singles. Try and just listen to the very first track, if you can get hold of it. Listen to it. Well, I'm now going to do Man Looks Up first track on phone, because I've forgotten what it's called. I think it is actually called Kamikaze. Here we go. Right. Album's called The Ringer. That's it. The Ringer. The first song, The Ringer. If you can find it, listen to it. It's awesome. And then moving on to some more new music that I've heard that I've been less than impressed with. And this is in no way trying to fly in the face of popular opinion. You know, my opinion is what it is. It's exactly that. It's my opinion, solely my opinion. But there's been a lot of news, a lot of hype, and a lot of talk in the metal community about a band called Alien Weaponry. Hey, John Andrews. I tracked the album down and put it on my phone. And I'm really not that impressed. Yes, they're a 3-piece. Yes, they're teenagers. Yes, they're from New Zealand. Yes, they're speaking in Maori sometimes. But for me, it does sound like a young band. Their arrangements are, for me, a bit poor. They'll get stuck in a groove too often. I'm hearing a lot of kind of Sepultura, Slipknot tribute riffs. Now there will be people out there listening to this who fucking love Alien Weaponry, and you know, I am not in any way saying I'm right, and I'm not saying that I'm somehow trying to steal any of your happiness, but it's just not for me. And funnily enough, we shared it around because the 4 of the band were together in the studio, and we've all listened to it, and basically all of us in Acid Rain have been kind of like meh, heavy metal Hanson. Because it's a 3-piece and one of them's got long blonde hair, and for those of you who remember Hanson, that might be chuckle-worthy if you know what Alien Weaponry looked like and you know what Hanson looked like. So I would say that joke is probably pretty fucking niche, to say the least. But, that's it. I mean, by all means, absolutely love them. I'm not, I think they've got potential, and I think I would definitely listen to another album, and I think they can only get better. And for a bunch of young lads from halfway around the world, I can only applaud their efforts. But for me, it's severely lacking. They're not a thrash band. I mean, they've got a couple of fast songs, but they're not a thrash band. They do like a repeated lyrical phrase. They do like to sit in a groove for a very long time. You can check some videos out on YouTube. Alien Weaponry is the band, and hey, some people might listen to this, go check them out, and really love them, and there you go. It's all about opinions, and me, sit here. I've kind of gone easy on them there, haven't I? Really, I've really sort of not, and I think it's because I can hear where they're coming from. I can understand what they're doing. To me, it's neither A, particularly original, or B, particularly well done. But that is just me, and it's just not for me. And I'm not kicking off about it like I would about something like Baby Metal or anything like that, because they're fucking shit. But I think, especially being a first band from New Zealand, and they're expanding, they're exporting the Maori language. They don't sing in Maori all the time. There's a few songs, quite a few of them in English as well. So I'd urge you to check them out and see what you think. For me, this is the weirdest fucking thing ever, isn't it? I'm urging you to check out a band I don't like. Maybe there's something about them that's made me do that. This is fucking weird. This is like, I'm accusing them of not being very original, and yet they are inspiring an original reaction from me, which is one of encouraging you to listen to a band I'm not particularly impressed with. Well, there you go, eh? I mean, fuck no. That's how this podcast works, eh? If you're listening, that's how the Bollocast works. And John, That's how opinion works. And if you don't like a band, tough fucking shit. And if you love them, great. People listening to this. Sorry, it's John Andrews, who's a patron who we were messaging about, and he accused me of being the only person in the UK who doesn't like alien weaponry, which is obviously, fair fucks to him, because that is some serious bollocks talk. So it was I felt like that was a Talking Bollocks tribute statement, and it certainly got a rise out of me. Anyway, that was a bit of a fucking sidetrack. So, give them a listen, see what you think. How many other podcasts are going to give you Eminem back to back with alien weaponry? I'll tell you how many. One. This one. And that's why you listen, my lovely bollock-eared friends. So, now it is time to get into the first interview. This is for me, I think this is a fantastic interview. I said that. I fucking said that. I said something that I'm involved with is fantastic. What's fucking wrong with that? Doesn't make me an egomaniac. It's good. You'll see. Coming up, you've got 90 minutes in the company of myself and Jayce Lewis, who took a break from recording. Before an enforced break because my voice went, and we used that time to record a podcast interview. It's an hour and a half long. It goes very, very deep. And whether you're aware of Jayce's music or not, the way I describe it is it's like Nine Inch Nails and Gary Newman mixed with Fear Factory and Rammstein. Ho, 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 ho. How'd you like them apples? Definitely worth checking out Jayce's stuff. He's got Door Martyr, Door spelt D-A-W, Martyr spelt as it's normally spelt. That's a new single, and that's up on YouTube, and you can have a listen to that. Album comes out on October the 21st, Million Part 2. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, myself and my very good friend and producer, Jayce Lewis. Hello, welcome to the interview with Jayce Lewis in a very different location, because normally, as you guys, you can already tell by the studio, the sound quality, that this is not a
test.
This is not a test. Yeah, very good one. Yeah. And we're actually in the studio. We got a little bit more time off than expected because, as you can hear, my voice has taken a bit of a kicking over the last 3 days, and we tried to do some recording today, but it just wasn't sounding right. So we've now got a bit of an extra time to have a chat with y'all. So Jayce, welcome to the Talking Bollocks podcast.
Thank you.
Let's talk some bollocks.
Plenty of.
Now, first off, people who aren't aware of your music, I'll have done an intro and all the rest of it prior to this, but people who aren't aware of your music, I might be surprised by a particular band that you kind of put together that never happened. And you know the one I mean.
Yeah. Well, some time ago, me and a dear friend of mine, Chris Kontos, who was in Machine Head on the Burn My Eyes album,
and previously Attitude Adjustment Kids.
Yes, indeed. We were working a lot together on my album for Million, and Chris and I were working so much together that we decided to think about putting a band together. And so during the conversations of that, we came up with the idea of, who do you know who can play bass? I suggested Adam Deuce, and so we reached out to Adam Deuce, and they got speaking, and so we drafted in Adam Deuce on bass. So it was Chris Kontos, myself, and Adam Deuce. And then Adam was the one who was, in his gravelled kind of voice, was like, I wonder what Logan's up to. And so we got in touch with Logan Madder, and all of a sudden, there I was faced with this original lineup of Machine Head, bar Rob Flynn, and
you fronting it,
and me fronting it, yeah, and
no pressure.
Yeah, well, there was that. I mean, a lot of we were discussing on the phone and on Skype, Jayce, you're going to be compared to Rob Flynn, but it didn't bother me at all because I do what I do, and it's completely different to what Rob Flynn does, and we were not trying to rip off Machine Head anyway. everything was going good. We wrote 2 songs, and arranging so many things like PR. We had a guy called Juan Ortega that was going to record it, and everything was coming together really well. And then all of a sudden, the elections started to happen.
The most recent presidential election in the States.
The most recent American presidential election. So obviously Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And what started to happen was that within the band, one guy was very pro Obama, the other guy was very pro Trump.
Right, so one was pro Hillary.
No, I can't remember.
Oh right, so it was more the Obama Trump than.
Well, it was that one was more of a lefty and the other one's more a righty.
Right, so Democrat, Republican.
Yeah.
But Trump is obviously a divisive figure.
Yeah, and so this then started to fracture the band and the work ethic that we had, and just it just halted the momentum of it. And in the end, I mean, I won't mention the names of who, but in the end, it just fell apart, and one guy hated the other. And
did it get physical at all?
No, it didn't get physical, but it did get quite heated a lot.
Right.
And it got very heated, and so understandably, if you're not in a band with somebody you like or agree with or whatever, what's the point? And so that's what happened. So the whole idea of that fell apart very quickly. It fell apart as quick as it came together.
Ah, such a shame. What might have been?
Yeah, and we were speaking about it. It was genuinely exciting. It was, we all thought, my God, this is really going to be quite something in the music press.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In the music media, and it's going to be quite a historic coming together of old and new, pretty much. And the music that we were doing was very, typically. It had elements of Machine Head, but it also had a lot of industrial. It was quite something,
Yeah.
So.
You did record stuff then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We recorded 2 tracks, and a lot of it was done over Skype, and me and Logan have got studios, and to record and stuff. So yeah, it came together really, really quick. It was really surprising.
And fell apart just as quickly.
And fell apart very quickly, yeah. So it was a real shame.
Yet another thing that we can blame Trump for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yet another thing that guy is to blame for, yeah.
Oh, such a shame. Robbed the metal community of what would have been an awesome album.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you still got the demos?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear them.
I've still got them at home, I believe. Yeah.
I would love to hear those sometime.
Yeah.
I really would.
Yeah, it sounded pretty mad. I mean, actually, my track Million on Million Part 1 kind of derived from that. I started writing Million, and you'll notice on Million that it's got that Davidian ending, where it's got that final. It's got that at the end. Well, that's all Chris Kontos.
Right, okay.
So the more I worked with Chris, the more I realised how much of Machine Head is missing by working with Chris Kontos. I mean, he is a very, very talented person, a talented all-round musician.
Right, so do you think that is where him and Rob would have butted heads, and hence...
Well... it's not just been from those guys. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, good and bad, about Rob, and I definitely think that the missing element, the key element that's missing from Machine Head is Chris Kontos.
From Burn My Eyes
onwards. Oh, definitely. All of those chops. His ideas are just incredible. I was really taken back by his arrangement suggestions.
Right.
How to play in, how to play out. If the guitar's going fast, the drums go slow. If the drums are going fast, the guitar goes slow. All of those things. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Chris was responsible for a lot of that.
Yeah.
And Logan brought in all these weird squiggly things on the guitar. All of those things are missing, and have been missing for years and years and years.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because it's I suppose, like you say, you had that original lineup bar Rob Flynn, so it's kind of like you really were at the centre of what was missing.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see the tapestry of of that band weave in and out, how they all work together, how Machine Head was how it was. And it's not like that anymore. And I was very lucky.
Yeah, that is a shame. But you mentioned Million Part 1 there, and obviously there's a Million Part 2 as well, and they're both out.
Yeah.
And you've just got back from a headline tour of the UK. How was that?
It was good. It was it was very, very good. And it was my first UK tour. It was a very short tour. But
and your first experience of typical. I cannot remember the phrase. VIP. That's it.
Yeah.
Of doing VIP packages.
Yeah, we did VIP for the very first time, and at first I was a little apprehensive of doing it, but actually they worked out really well. Doing the VIP was, the VIP packages was actually giving the fan, the ability to sort of see how we live on the road.
Right. Okay.
And it worked really well. They came onto the bus. We gave them this whole.
That's a brave move right there, letting people on your tour.
Well, I told them.
Oh, I'll just put my pants away.
Yeah. Well, thankfully we had a few of the girls on the bus who do merch, and Lindsay, who was doing who was administrating the VIP. They cleaned the bus up and bleached mainly Martin Thompson, the bass player's bunk, because. But we were telling the fans, like, please ignore the smell of balls and socks. And they did, in all fairness.
Well, yeah, because that is pretty much all the tour bus smells of, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's kind of weird. I mean, I think that's cool that rather than just a sort of sterile, take a ticket, stand in line, and meet in a room in a venue and just come in.
Yeah.
Shake hands, take a picture, sign a piece of something.
Yeah.
And that you kind of let them into your world, as it were. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it was. Well, when the idea was being suggested to do a VIP, that's what everybody thought we would do, is just shake hands and thank you very much, have a photograph, and that was the end of that. But actually, I just wanted to add more. So they're in on a sound check. They get to buy merch early. And then they ask us questions on the bus, and they have pictures with us on the bus. We also did a photograph session whereby the picture could be printed out there and then we sign it. We sign the photograph for them.
Oh, that's cool. And also that you let them give you their money early as well.
Yeah,
that's really nice. Pay for the VIP. You can buy merch early.
Yeah. You can buy, give us.
Or you can just give me some money.
Well, it was. Well, that's happened before. I've had donations. I've had fan donations in the past.
That's weird.
Several thousand.
I know, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It's just incredible how much music has made a difference in someone's life, and that's why they've done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know from working with you these last few weeks, whatever, that there was a particularly touching story regarding a donation.
A guy in his 20s that was suffering with cancer of the lymph node.
Lymphatic cancer, an absolute bitch.
So he
not
was.
That there's any cancer that isn't.
He was cancer bats. They not.
Good.
That's point. A band.
True.
But he
Batty
was.
Cancer.
Yeah, batting cancer.
No, not batty cancer. No, I don't.
Cancer of the ass. Oh, that's terrible.
Sorry,
funny.
There's me. Oh, there's a really touching story, and then I just sit here and make stupid fucking jokes.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get back to this comedy anecdote about lymphatic cancer.
Yeah. So this guy, this guy in his mid to late 20s had cancer of the lymph node, and he was very ill in hospital. And there was a stage whereby it looked as though he wasn't going to make it, and he took a turn. But I released Million. They'd seen me supporting Gary last year, Gary Newman, on tour, and they bought the album, the Million Part 1 album, and apparently he had it in hospital. He was listening to that album over and over and over again, and it apparently gave them the incentive to think about a music career for him. So I'm not sure the backstory of if it was just to make him feel stronger and better and to help him through his this disease, this illness he had. But he was recovering, and so much so that they decided to, when he got better, they sold up their haulage company and decided to emigrate to New Zealand, and he's now studying music as a direct result of the Million album.
Wow.
And because they sold everything to move out there, they gave me a good few thousand as a thank you present.
Oh, wow.
And
Isn't that lovely?
yeah, it's quite nice. Yeah, it's like, and that obviously just went straight into production and albums, and so went back into doing music.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That, I mean, that's a real beautiful story, and the positive power of music, which is amazing. I mean, doing comedy and music, it's such a different vibe, because comedy, everyone's been funny at some point in their lives. They've told a funny story, they've told a joke, whatever. And so when you're a comedian, people just come up and go, "Oh, that was really funny. Oh, you were really funny. Oh, you were great. Oh, that was great." I had one guy say to me, actually, probably one of the best ones was a guy coming up and going, I was like walking through, and he saw me, and he just went, "Oh, fuck off, will you, mate? I've got a migraine from laughing."
Oh, never.
Yeah, and I'd given him a migraine from laughing so much, which
man.
was kind of like the ultimate compliment. But then when it goes to music, it's completely different, because what music does, it has the power to affect people emotionally, and you can hear a song and you can instill in somebody you can take them back to a particular time, an emotion, a part of their life, and done. They're there. And I think that is the difference, and that's how you end up with like real fandom in music, because people attach significant events in their lives to particular songs, to particular albums, whatever. And so that's why the kind of VIP thing and everything works in music, because I think there's for some people there's a real want and need to meet artists and to tell them how much how much they mean to them, or this song got me through that, or that song got me through that. I mean, we have a song called Thoughtful Sleep, and we played that in Manchester last year, and a guy came up to me afterwards. The song is about a guy called Richard who commits suicide through parental neglect, and I said that this song's for Richard, and we played it. And this guy came up to me afterwards, and he said, "You made me cry tonight." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Didn't think I was that out of tune." I said, "I'm sorry. What was that?" He said, "Oh, it was just." He said, "A friend of mine, my friend who got me into Acid Rain, was called Richard and committed suicide."
Oh man!
And when you said tonight, I've never seen you play that song live. And when you said tonight that this is for Richard, and it was Thoughtful Sleep, he said, I was just a mess. So I just burst out crying. So I don't know where it came from.
Wow.
And it was just like, and he was, you could see he was kind of welling me up, telling me as well. And it was just like, wow.
Terrible.
But when that your music has had, I mean, that wasn't a negative effect. I think it's a positive, but it is. I don't know. It's hard to describe, isn't it?
Well, yeah. when I listen to music, I pull it apart. There's more of a production value that I listen in on it.
Yeah.
Rather than
there is that.
Let it take me away.
No, there is that because we've peeked behind the curtain so much now.
Yeah.
It's like people say to me, it's like, oh, that album, I can't stop playing it. And it's like the most I can play an album will be probably 5 or 6 times. It's like, because I know it now. Because you're used to digesting music in a different way.
Absolutely. It's it's a fact. It never ceases to amaze me where my music ends up in different parts of the world, and that these people get in touch with me, and they tell me that the effects of whatever album or whatever song has had on them. I mean, I can't quite believe that that my music has not only made people, for instance, have a tattoo of my name or my face on their body, but also
that is just fucking mental, isn't it?
Well,
especially when it's your name. I mean, I've seen acid rain tattoos on people.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, but it would freak me out if it was my fucking name.
Well, my name, my face, it's very different.
Where was the face tattooed?
On the chest. On the chest.
He must have really liked you.
It was a woman. It was a woman, an Italian woman.
Really?
Yeah.
When you say the chest?
Yeah, like right in between the breasts. It was, quite a big tattoo as well. It was quite, I mean, I've sort of learned to just accept it really, and to not freak out. It actually freaked out my friends more than it freaked me out. I remember some of my friends were like, "Oh my God, that's so weird," and they would, I'd have a photograph sent to me on Facebook or whatever, put on my wall of a tattoo, and then one of my friends would be like, "Oh my God, that's so weird. I've known Jayce since blah blah blah."
Yes.
And I'd have to say to them, "Man, chill out. You got Sepultura on your leg, or Nick Cave or something like that."
Yeah,
it's the same thing. So
I've got acid rain on my leg. That freaks me out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? Because you're in acid rain?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right, okay.
I look at it and go, wow, that guy must really like acid rain.
Maybe I should put Jayce Lewis on my wrist.
Yeah. Well, it will come in handy if you ever forget your name.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
or if people say, what's your name? And you just hold your wrist
hold your wrist up.
Yeah.
Jayce
Lewis, motherfucker.
Yeah, Jayce Lewis.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've done some incredible things. You've been all over the world. I will have done a description of kind of like your music, as it were, for people and for those who don't know your work. But you've worked with some incredible artists over the years as well, haven't you? I mean, working with Queen, working with Gary Newman. I mean, Queen right there. That's that's the gold standard, isn't it? I mean, it just doesn't get bigger or better than that.
I mean, that does feel like the ultimate to me, really, because being a Queen fan that I was and still am when I was a child.
Ditto.
And
my dad had Bohemian Rhapsody played at his funeral. So there you go. It always meant a lot.
Absolutely.
Within our family.
Yeah, it's I mean, I was in the Queen fan club. My mother would sign me up for a year when I was a child, and to be a member of Queen fan club, and I'd have a booklet every 3 months or something like that.
Yeah,
I just found it incredible. I found Queen amazing, and then
because they are.
Yeah, because they are. I mean, the music and the hits that they've had, and just the backstory and everything is just incredible. And it was Brian May's guitar that really sold it to me. I just loved the sound of that guitar. I loved the vocal prowess of Freddie Mercury, his stage presence.
I mean, to have that talk about the whole package.
Oh,
to
God,
to have that vocal ability, which was just jaw-dropping.
Oh,
but then to be able to match that with the ability as a frontman as well is just, I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, you just think of the songs that they've written, and then the performance live. For me, it was just mind-blowing.
Well, also the eras as well, because you had these sort of guitar-based kind of rock-driven Queen. Yeah. But then you had, from The Works onwards, after their kind of hiatus, you had that next era of Queen.
Yeah.
I mean, you put Bohemian Rhapsody and I Want to Break Free next to each other, and there's no way you think that's the same band.
Yeah.
Apart from the voice.
And Who Wants to Live Forever and all that.
Man.
I mean,
Highlander.
like the Innuendo album, the drum kit that was used on that album was the same person and drum kit that was used on my song Wrath, because Roger drummed on Wrath for me on my Nemesis album, and it was the same kit. And spookily enough, when you listen to Innuendo and then you listen to Wrath, you can instantly tell.
Yeah,
the same snare, the same. He even does a couple of rolls that are the same, couple of drum rolls.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just bizarre.
And, he's got a good voice as well. I'm in love with my car. I mean, I've always loved that song.
Yeah. Who now? Roger Taylor?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I got into Roger's side project, which was called The Cross. Mm-hmm. And ironically, The Cross had a drummer called Josh McRae, and that's the guy that introduced me to both Brian and Roger.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, he was the drummer in The Cross, and he works with Queen all the time now he's in production and administrates a few things for him.
Yeah.
Great guy, and I owe him a lot because he's the man that got the ball rolling with Brian and Roger for me. But it makes me pause to sometimes realise and think back that I've actually worked with the pair of them now,
Yeah.
and not only speak to Brian every now and then, and I met up with him a few months ago at their show. We were lucky to be taken on stage and shown around. I jumped on Roger's drum kit. I had Brian's guitar in my hand and analysed it like I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
analysing every nut and bolt and wood grain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then hung out with Brian and Anita, his wife, at the after show where I then finally met Jackie, who is the head woman of the Queen fan club, who I've been speaking to. Yeah, I've been speaking to her on email, and she couldn't believe that I went from this 8, 9, 10-year-old Queen fan to now working with Queen on music that we've written together.
Yeah, that isn't, well, if she can believe it, you can believe it.
Yeah. So I mean, we had a big hug over that, and we talked for a little while, and then Brian came along and tapped me on the shoulder and just went, how's things, in his friendly voice, and then we got speaking about Cyborg and a little bit of astronomy, and
that's awesome.
Cyborg is a song he wrote in '96, which is where I got the idea of using the guitar.
I'm surprised you haven't clashed over your love of badger baiting as well.
Yeah, badger bashing, we call it in Wales. No. Yeah, we have spoken about that actually. We have, because I'm dead against animal cruelty and fox hunting, and me and Brian have spoken about it a number of times.
Yeah, because he's immensely passionate and very public as well.
Very outspoken about it, and absolutely right as well. I mean, it's disgusting. I can't stand it. I was actually traumatized as a child with fox hunting. We used to have a fox hunt around the back of my house. And I was traumatized. I didn't see the fox being ripped apart, but I could hear it, and it was sick. I think I was about 9 or 10, and it absolutely put the terror into me. Yeah. And I swore to myself ever since that if I ever see anyone doing that, I'll do the same to them. I feel that passionate about it.
Fair play, mate. I mean, I lived in I was brought up in the countryside as well.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a hunt, but I was just like just as a natural reaction to it. You just think, well, like, A, what's the point in that? B, isn't it a bit unfair? Do you know what I mean? It's
just the method.
Hello?
The method.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
but also then there's the barbaric act of blooding somebody on their first hunt and stuff like that. And it's just like,
I mean, what year are we in?
Yeah.
What year are we in? 21st century intelligence, great intelligence. People, we can take photographs on our mobile phones. We can speak. It's just,
but to be fair.
It depends what phone.
But I mean, you're talking intelligence and all the rest of it. It's like, and Trump's president of America. Come on.
Well,
there
I think that was an element of protest. I don't believe that. I can't quite believe that America would be that stupid.
Yeah.
But I I guess,
Apparently
so.
It's okay to say that you grab women by the pussy, and women are still going to vote for you. I mean, I don't fucking know what you have to do. But,
it is.
Anyway, that's a whole nest of
it's a can of worms.
As Alan Partridge would say, that's a whole nest of vipers. And yes, Jayce could switch the notifications off on his phone, but I like the idea that every time when a notification goes off on that phone, people listening to this will be checking their phones.
I've turned it down now. Yeah.
I mean, if they're like playing it like at home through stereo, like, ping. Oh, I've got a message. No, you haven't. Oh, what the fuck's going on here?
Oh my god, my mind.
So in case you were wondering, no, don't worry, it's not your phone. It's fucked up. That's Jayce's. That's Jayce's notifications coming in. The other thing I wanted to mention as well was obviously, not obviously, but you've got quite a strong bond with the Rammstein guys.
Yeah.
And which is kind of weird because you've like never played together.
Yeah, no, we've never toured. Much to many people's misunderstanding, a few people have thought that we have been on the road together.
Me being one of them.
But I've never toured with them. I'd like to, and I have pestered Christoph every now and then. But I became friends with Christoph, the drummer at Sonosphere Festival. There was kind of at the time, I think it was 2010 or 11, there was a real buzz about going around amongst artists, not amongst the public over this way in the UK, but amongst artists of this electronic guy that was doing the retro electronica of mid to late 90s, and was getting a lot of attention about it over the east in the east region. And so obviously that was myself, and the description of it was somewhat a heavier Nine Inch Nails thrown into the camp of Depeche Mode. Rammstein being massive Depeche Mode fans, eventually cottoned on who I was back in the artist area, and we just got chatting, myself and Christoph initially, and me, Christoph, and his now wife Yuli, and we just struck up a chord. We just got on really, really well and kept in touch. Got to know Till through it all as well, and it was quite weird actually, because on the night when I was speaking to Christoph, the first time I actually met Till was Till tapping me on the shoulder in this very brooding, German accent, and just said, "Hello, hookers and cocaine this way," and was just pointing towards his tent, and it just sort of stopped me.
So obviously about 15 hours later, you woke up in a bin.
Yeah, well, with the rest of the prostitutes, and thought, wow.
Turns out he was offering you a job as a prostitute.
Yeah. I'd end up paying them. That's the thing. But so that's the first time I met Till. And
did you go?
No, I didn't. No, I was just having I was just having a bigger conversation with Christoph. Me and Christoph were just talking about drums and what it was like to be in Rammstein, and I just got on really, really well with him. Really well.
As drummers do.
Yeah, as we do.
Because it is weird. It's like singers. Singers can when they click together, there is just it's just weird. And I think it's the same with drummers as well. And I'm going to pick those two. I don't think it's the same with bass players, guitarists. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I think that because the drumming and singing are two such different disciplines, and one's back of the stage, one's right at the front of the stage, they are both equally important.
They're very
without
physical.
The drummer, it falls apart. Without a good front man or singer, then it falls apart. And I think there's so when you get those two sets of musicians clicking, drummers, couldn't resist.
Not a musician, a drummer.
Yeah. What do you do? I sing. What do you do? I play guitar. What do you do? Bass. What do you do? I hit things. But it is. They're two really unique positions, and when you meet somebody and you click like that, I think it is. It's like there's almost like this unique sort of bond that takes place really quickly because you understand the intricacies of what you do.
Yeah, well, they're both very physical. I mean, you know, playing the guitar and playing the bass, I mean, yeah, they throw themselves around or whatever, but it's all ultimately with the hand, you know, with the hands.
Hands and arms.
Hands and arms.
Forearms, especially thrash.
Yeah, especially thrash. But drumming and...
You should see the forearms on Paul. Looks like fucking Popeye.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A Paka Popeye.
Paka Popeye.
Yeah.
It's weird because his forearms look like Popeye, and yet Cookie looks like Popeye. And he loves spinach as well, which is fucking weird.
Oh my god!
When I was driving down here, he sent me a message saying, "Remember to pick up some. Can you pick up some spinach for me?" And I was like, "Yep, no worries, Popeye."
Oh god!
Sorry, I fucking went off on a tangent there. So yes, guitarring and playing.
Yeah, I just find. Well, I mean, I've gone from being
forearm.
a drummer to a guitarist. I've gone from being a drummer.
What do you do now?
I don't really know. I've gone from being a drummer to a frontman.
Yeah.
You know,
from the back of the stage to the front of the stage.
Yeah, I used to be terrified. I'm still terrified now getting up on stage. I used to have a really big drum kit.
Really? Seriously? Are you terrified?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You get stage fright? Do you get nervous?
I get very nervous.
Really?
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
Wow.
I get very nervous. I have a kind of panic attack.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and but the weird thing about it is that it kind of it does something to me just before I get on stage. I am petrified, and I'm panicking, and I'm thinking things through. I'm overthinking basically, and then as soon as I get on stage, that fear turns into a real
energy.
Sort of an adrenaline, a very, very aggressive adrenaline.
Yeah.
And that's when I get on stage and I feel like I own it then.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I'm still, you know,
computing how this can go wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anxiety.
Always. Yeah, it is like a form of anxiety. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that.
Yeah.
It's not anxiety because I did suffer with that last year. But it is a very weird out-of-body experience, and somehow it just propels me into being this strangely confident, angry-esque kind of frontman.
Yeah.
But it's so far from the truth. I'm actually terrified.
That's weird but then again, I suppose because you're a producer, because you piece all your music together, and I mean that's ultimate control. I mean nobody plays on your stuff unless you offer them a guest spot, and and so that's absolute control. And then you go to the live arena and it's the exact opposite.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You are now not in control of anything.
Yeah, that's very
the only
right.
thing you can affect is the vocals. That's and obviously the crowd. And
the funny thing is that I remember speaking to Till about this because I asked him. It wasn't when I met him. It was when we were in Nottingham. I actually brought Gary Newman with me. I had Gary and his wife and some of his band and crew on my guest list to meet Rammstein.
Right.
And me and Till were speaking about this, and I said, you know, how do you overcome? You know, do you get panicky or do you get sort of scared or whatever? And he said, oh yeah. And I said, how do you overcome it? And he said, well, I don't perform to the audience, I perform to the sound engineer.
Yeah.
And I started doing that. And that has helped. The thought of eyes looking on me is just terrifying.
I like connecting with people. I like looking at them. I like to see who's enjoying it. I like to see various reactions.
Yeah, no, I'm not like that at all.
But also as a stand-up, you have to do that.
Oh, right.
As a stand-up, if you went on and performed to the back of the hall, you just die on your ass because you're not connecting with the audience. You're not in the room.
Oh yeah, of course.
You ain't got music going on. You know, it's just you. So you've got to do that.
I couldn't do that. See, that's not me.
It's not your wheelhouse.
No, it's I mean, it's not so bad now, but I do get terrified.
Also headlining, it's another level of
because there is a real exactly that a real sort of a real high measure of responsibility. I mean, people are there for you now.
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah,
felt that on
absolutely,
the
yeah.
tour, you know. We did this headline tour, albeit 4 or 5 shows, and it was, it was quite interesting to have a congregation of just my fans. I wasn't in a support slot,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it was extra. It was like another level for me,
Yeah.
and I've never experienced that before. Never.
Right, okay.
I always have come in as the sort of undercard.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah,
And I
'cause
liked that.
Oh, yeah, the underdog. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
loved coming in as the undercard
Yeah.
or the underdog.
Yeah, because you can. Well, the thing is, you can overachieve as a headliner. You
Exactly.
can't overachieve.
Yeah. So, but now that we did the headline tour, it really did rack it up to another level, and I felt really on form, you know, and seeing people being the way they were in the audience, and you know the VIPs that we had. I mean, it was like, you know, my God, these people are here to see me and nothing
Yeah.
else, and
Yeah.
it was a real boost of confidence, and a real made me look at myself and believe in what I've achieved to date. You know,
Yes.
which I've never really done.
Well, and that's very important. It's very important because you can get trapped in that walking off stage and start thinking about the next gig.
Yeah.
And not walking off stage and going, right, that was a really good gig.
Yeah.
That was really great fun. That was, you know, and everybody had a good time, and it's gone down really well, and
Yeah.
we played really well, and
Yeah.
and I've fallen into that habit before of walking off stage and just literally, as you come off stage, as soon as you come off stage, that's the end of all of that.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
start thinking about the next date.
Yeah.
And that is not a good thing to do.
No, I agree. Totally
Because
agree.
and also, you know, if you don't enjoy the fruits of your labours, then what's the point?
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
Totally
and I think it's that thing. I mean, it sounds very American counselor, American therapy kind of thing, but it's about being present. It's
Yeah.
about being in the moment
I
and
agree.
appreciating each moment for what it is. You know,
Totally, absolutely.
and speaking of which, and being in the moment, I know that Million Part 2 has just come out, and I also know that was an epic and emotional journey for you.
Yeah, it was a
Tough times.
very, very difficult time for me, and a real sense of being in a headspace and in a zone that I would never ever want to revisit or ever be in ever again. You know, I was, I was in a long-term relationship, and with a person that was a very good friend before the relationship, and it came to a very sudden end. The day before I had to record vocals for the last 2 songs, and the day before I got into mixing and producing the album.
Yeah.
And it was a really heartbreaking, horrible time for me, and trying to keep my head focused in order to keep the album going forward was just very painful. And you know, I mean, we're sat in the studio where I did it, and you know, I was here from 8:30 or 8 a.m. through to 1 a.m. Most nights, because I just couldn't face the thought of going home and being on my own.
Yeah.
It was the first feeling I've ever had of the sense of totally realizing that I had a sense of belonging and a sense of attachment, and it had been removed immediately with
Yeah.
immediate effect. And the effects of that on me, I'm still grieving
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But I can't even listen to Million Part 2 anymore. You know, I think when the album was sent off for mastering, I could only afford 3 seconds or up to maybe 6 seconds at most of my listening time before it started to upset me, and so I could only do that for mastering. And I just said to Dick Beetham, who's a very good friend, who's always mastered my albums, you know, said that it's all fine. I trust your ear on it. I can't really listen to it. Told him what had happened, and he was fine with that. And yeah, we kind of put it out. I mean, it's out October the 12th, but fans have been able that did come to the headline tour have been able to buy early copies.
Yeah.
And they've all said it's the best album I've ever done.
That you can't listen to.
That I can't listen to, yeah. And, there's a certain song on there called Demigod, and you can hear it in my voice in the chorus, because that was the first song I actually had to record vocally. I'd already done the verses, but I had to do the chorus the day after. And you can hear it in my voice, and I tried everything in my power to smooth it out and try and do a bit of pre-production to try and iron out this heartbreak that you could hear in my voice, and you just couldn't. You just could not. There was just no way around it. And in the end, I just gave in and thought, well, it is what it is. It feels like it's just a moment in time now, held within a capsule, a medium capsule of music that I never want to revisit, and that I will never forget. And oddly enough, I did put up a post on my social medias of the moment that I actually exported the final song at midnight one evening.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing it and reading it and thinking, I hope you're all right. And I didn't know anything that had gone on. But I just remember thinking, I hope you're okay, and my apologies for not getting in touch at the time and asking you that.
No, it was to be honest with you, a lot of my friends, a lot of people just didn't know how to react because it just happened suddenly, and a lot of people didn't see it coming, especially myself. And the weird thing about it is that I've lost a friend. Yeah. I've lost my best friend.
As a whole,
in every way possible. And,
as a whole. And
I'm not going to go into any details, but it's just it's been a very, very difficult time, and I've done everything in my power to try and get it back and have things back as they once was, but it's just to no avail. And so trying to write the album, or rather produce it right after it all, for me was absolutely almost impossible, and it's all caught up in that one album. And when you hear the term blood, sweat and tears went into an album, I mean, there's no truer phrase. Maybe not blood, but certainly a lot of tears.
Yeah.
And, for instance, when I did put that post up on my social media, just saying, I didn't really go into what had happened. Now I can kind of say it was a real tragic kind of relationship breakdown, really, that meant the world to me. And I can only say that now because, we're several months on. And it's easier for me to speak about it. But at the time, I really felt like I was just caught up in this very isolated. I was in this very enclosed, almost like a claustrophobic headspace that I didn't feel I could kind of reach out to anybody at all. And I had some mad things going through my mind to the point where it would actually push me to get counselling eventually. And I only ever had the one session, but it was enough.
Yeah. Because
it freaked me out. Totally freaked me out. I felt as though it opened up a can of worms within myself. And
what, the counselling or the
counselling?
Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, both actually. Because the breakdown of that sent me on a tangent. I was ripping myself to bits, blaming myself and ripping myself apart. and as I typically do, because I was just finding fault within myself.
Yeah.
And my, it was tearing my father's heart to bits, because my father was just trying to be the best he could. I spoke to Dave about it, Dave Prowse and his wife Norma, and they were wonderful about it. And it was just all very, I just didn't know how to act. I felt lost, and I felt very
alone.
Absolutely alone. And so here I was, alone, didn't want to go home. All I could do was I just wanted to keep my mind occupied by doing Million Part 2.
Yeah.
And so I put my everything into just doing that. And it was just very strange, because there's a lot of emotion in that album, more than any of my albums, because it was right after it. I also added in a few things on synths. I also added a few things vocally extra, because of the headspace I was in. And it's interesting how it just changed the parameters of what I was originally intending the album to sound like, and it just put it into a very somber, emotional piece of music. And it's probably the most operatic kind of, closest thing I could say is operatic, but it's probably the closest operatic kind of piece of work I've ever done. But I've only got to hear a few seconds of a certain part of the song, and I'm like, I start instantly
going back to that
very moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny, because we were talking about about our music triggering emotions and things in other people.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate,
my own
your own
music
triggering stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the tragic thing about it is that I couldn't identify myself for the first month, certainly the first several weeks directly after, and I've likened it to like a death. It's like as if somebody's died, and somebody that I cared about and loved very much, and just cut off instantly, and it just kind of.
Well, it is. It's grief, isn't it? You're grieving.
That's exactly
you're grieving for that. Just because that person is still alive doesn't mean that you can't grieve for what you've lost.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes I've got the ability to be able to compartmentalize some feelings quite well. If somebody dies, if an animal dies, like my old dog years ago and stuff, I'm able to grieve it for a little moment and deal with that. Or sometimes I can just put up a sort of a veil, and it doesn't pierce through.
None of that is particularly healthy.
No, it's but and it's just a very guarded, because the one things I learnt, the big thing I learnt about the counselling was that I had to be protective of an inner part of myself, which I'm very protective of.
Yeah.
And so through what had happened, it had really brought that to the forefront, and I've never felt so vulnerable, so lost, so opened up, so wide open, and so raw. It was a very, very challenging time, and one that all I could do was put my entire energy into Million Part 2.
Yeah.
And of course, even your album, even Acid Rain, because you guys were directly right after that, and it's kept me being occupied, and I've managed to put my emotional aspect of it into music.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we're all human, and I'm sure that anybody that's lost anybody, or whether it be through death or relationship or whatever, if somebody's a big part of your life for a long time, it's going to make you rethink, and it was probably the most sobering time of my life, and still is. I still reflect and wish I could turn back the clock and change things and make things better or whatever, but I can't do that. And so sadly for me, it's all in that album, and that album for me will always be a closed book.
Well, you know, when you were saying about you can hear the heartbreak in your voice on that chorus.
Yeah.
And when you were saying you were trying to take it out.
Yeah.
You were trying. Were you trying to take it out from a musical perspective, or were you trying to take it out from a I don't want people to hear that part of me perspective?
That I didn't want people to hear it.
Right.
Because because you know it.
Well, there's only so much you can give of yourself. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to hold something back.
Yeah. It's it's taking me right back to it now, actually. But it there's another song on it called Mimic, and the middle eight of that song, I'm in a real state, and I couldn't even identify my own voice. Right. Couldn't even identify my own singing voice. It was that odd for me.
Wow.
And I tried to sort that out. I actually deleted the track, and I tried to do it again, and it just sounded wrong. So I've left it in, and you can definitely tell there's something not right with me. And again, on that song, that very song, my head was in such a bad place that I couldn't even write the second verse. So I just used the pre-chorus, which is eat, sleep, repeat. It goes on for an entirety of a verse.
Right.
Because I ran out of time, and
because that's all you were doing at the time.
That's all I was doing. Yeah. It was pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much that. Well, except I wasn't sleeping. You know, I mean, I was having. Anxiety was all over me again, and but a very different sort of anxiety, a very kind of pain anxiety. You know, I've just. A moment in time I will never revisit. It's just like that post I put on social media, because I only put that up because I was paranoid about people being able to tell that this is a very different kind of album. And although everyone that's had it and bought it and borrowed it and stolen it have all said it's my best, it's gutting for me to hear that, because I can't and will not listen to it.
Yeah.
You know, Dormata is a very different kettle of fish, because that was written a long time before any of this happened. You know, before I even got into a relationship. But that was actually written about 6 years ago. But the rest of it was very on the button at the time.
Right.
And
well, funnily enough, when you played me Dormata the other day, you just played me that one track, and I was like really surprised that you didn't play any of the other tracks off it, and now, of course, I know why.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, I just cannot do it. And the band want me to play, they want me to do, like, Martin wants to do Mimic, and I can't remember what the other ones want to do, but I've just flat said no. I don't even want to hear them ever again. I can't listen to it. You know, it's, my father played it the other day, and he knew straight away, because as soon as I came in the house, he was there, you know, and he was playing it, and he turned it off straight away, knowing that it would upset me.
Right.
And it's mad. It's absolutely mad that that's happened, you know, timing and all of that. But, you know, anybody that does hear that album will know now.
And that's the weird thing as well, isn't it? Because it's like there's you know, you'll have people come and say like, oh, you know, this song or this bit is like, oh, you know, that's amazing and all this, and you'll be thinking, well, you know, yeah, that's me coming apart at the seams right now.
Oh,
you know?
Man, yeah, even more than that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was not cool. I had, You know, I had some very, very, very dark times, and I didn't recognize myself, and I almost felt as though I was. I mean, this might sound strange, but I felt as though I was constantly out of my own body, looking at myself.
Yeah.
Trying to function.
Yeah.
And I couldn't.
No, I know exactly the feeling. That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
looking at your own hands and going, are they my hands?
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
And bless his heart, Sanj, who owns the Coleman Manor, which is, you know, we're like if you like sort of business partners. I got my recording studio here, and he's got his hotel. I mean, he was coming in here every day, bringing in a beer or having a chat with me and whatever. And he was fundamentally a real rock for me.
Yeah.
You know, I have him to thank massively. He was one of the real people that sort of kept me together and actually said, "Come on, mate, you got to finish that album," you know, and just kept me going. And my father was the same. And it was just so strange. I've just I've never been in that headspace before.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've been sad and happy and whatever else, but
yeah.
actually have gone and needed counselling with this lovely lady called Joanna. I've never ever had to do that before, and I've never been in that place, and it was frightening. It's frightening me now, actually, thinking back to it, because, you know, I just wasn't thinking straight at all. I just could not function right.
Yeah.
And when you rip yourself apart like that, you know, it's like self-destruct.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you haven't got you, who have you got?
Exactly. And I was ripping me apart.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time trying to remedy and repair, and it was just not happening.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very sad album for me, and it'll sound pretty upbeat and whatever else, but yeah, you know, it's a very sad album.
But did the tour kind of like help get stuff out of your system? Was that kind of like you know, being able to go out on stage, as we were talking about being a headliner, and do you think it gave you a different perspective?
It's well, I mean,
I don't mean on the album, but I mean in, like, you know, I'm making progress, I'm moving forward.
Yeah, every day, every step, every day from there on in now, especially on the tour, I just realised that people do care, you know, and the weird thing was, for the first time, really, I'm often a guy that I keep my private life very private, but if I need help on something, I will reach out. On this, I was not wanting any help.
Yeah.
Couldn't I just couldn't function in that way, and I was just having these very mini breakdowns, and so I would speak to Sanj, or I would speak to Cyan, my bass player, my other bass player, in fact, Martin, bless his heart. He actually came from Bristol to have a beer with me that night, the day after, and spent the night down here and just had to hear me out, really. So talking about it had helped, and it also made me realise a few things about myself, you know, which is why I went to and had counselling.
Yeah.
Which, in a weird way, opened up a can of worms. It's kind of like, oh shit, oh my god, I'm crazy. You know,
it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah, well, it did. Well, the mad thing is that what happens now, which has never happened before, is when I feel something a certain way, I actually now resort to what we spoke about, me and Joanna, in the counselling session, and that now helps me. And for years and years, I was telling lots of people, you know, friends of mine, they're all on antidepressants.
Sorry. Yeah.
They're all on antidepressants, and I said to them, you haven't got to be on that, because those people, some of them are on antidepressants because they just...
It's a chemical
imbalance
in the brain.
But some people are going on them because of a certain situation. And and I say to them, it's not you, it's the situation.
Yes.
The situation comes and goes. But if you're trying to
if you become
self-medicate
and become reliant on that,
exactly, then it's going to rewire you, and then it's just going to make things worse. So I've now try to tell myself, this is just a moment.
Yeah.
It's a very dark and painful and won't make any sense, but one day it might.
And there'll be another side to it. And the day that you can listen to Million Part 2 and and not go back to that place is when you realise that you've got closure on that situation, that you've moved on, that you've emotionally healed.
Yeah.
And that it's a different time in your life. It's funny, somebody once said to me something that's always stuck with me, and they said when anything shit happens in my life or anything like that, I said, what I always think, do you know what, in 10 years I'll just be a distant memory.
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me. I'm not saying it's like, it's a tool to use, to solve anything. Yeah. But it's just, it's kind of like and I always think, right, what was I up to 10 years ago? What was I doing? Where was I?
Yeah.
And you think, you know what?
Yeah.
Christ, that's...
Yeah, well, this is certainly going to be one of those times where I'm going to never forget it, but also want to forget it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
absolutely. It's not something that you've dwelled on it enough, and it's kind of like the next cycle of your life is beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it's enabled me to sort of look at myself, even more, in a different perspective, rather than just being this unfazed on a mission type entity or whatever it is, that nearly every friend of mine says that I have been for years.
I can identify with that.
And I'm sure you can. And I've had to look at things differently in that sense, and it's definitely changed me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've never been a horrible person or anything like that. That's not what it is. But it's just been one of those chapters in my life that has made a real significant change on certain parts of me, and some sort of self-realization. And the album, I mean, if you buy Million, the vinyl, you will see that there's two faces on it. There's two faces facing each other, and it's a self-reflective. It's meant to signify self-reflection. Never has it ever been such a truer theme and more poignant theme than that for me on this album. And yet, when I did Million 1, everything's great. Did Million 2, everything's gone. Incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's lots of other things on it which I'll tell you later, but it's just things that are just spooky about Million.
Yeah.
Really.
Coincidences.
Yeah. Very, very, very. Well, I'll show you actually. That being one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So that won't be on any album after this either.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
So yeah, it's quite. It's eerie. It's very eerie for me.
That puts a tin hat on it, really, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Wow.
So, yeah, there you go. The troubles of Jayce Lewis.
Yeah. I think everybody knows you a little bit better now.
Well, the thing is, I'm bearing all. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I put it in my music also. So.
But that's what people connect to, and that's what people, that's what an artist does. I mean, as an artist, you take risks and you put yourself out there. I mean, a prime example of that is when I'm doing comedy. I can see, and a friend of mine, a comedy promoter, is a really good friend of mine. I MC a kind of tryout night because I like to see like the new talent coming through. Yeah. There's no money in it for me, but I like to stay sort of connected to that part of the circuit.
Yeah.
And you can spot a mile away. If somebody gets up there and they start performing, and straight away it'll start jarring, and we'll look at each other and saying, this isn't genuine. This isn't, and then you go, and then we'll look at each other and go, actor.
Oh, man.
And it'll be an actor trying out stand-up. And what they're doing is they're getting up there and they are performing stand-up. And that's not what you do. Because as an actor, this is the thing with stand-up, is that you have to go up there and you have to totally reveal yourself. You know, that's what makes people laugh, is when you vocalise thoughts that they've had. Yeah. But you've got the balls to go up there and actually vocalise them and reveal yourself and say, this is what I think. Genuinely, this is what I fucking think. Yeah. Whereas an actor will go up and will perform a script. Because the role an actor cannot perform is themselves. That's why they're an actor. They're hiding behind other people. Yeah. Because they don't want to reveal themselves. So straight away it's just like, oh, that's jarring. It's disingenuous, you know. And and that is the thing about, you know, when you're performing art, when it really works, is when you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier. It's like I said earlier, you know, like these donations that fans have made over the last load of years, you know, and there's several thousands of pounds, because they just want me to carry on going. You know, my music's doing something for them that I've never thought about, really. Yeah. And that's awesome. That is awesome. It's odd. We've been offered thousands of pounds to stop.
That's a good one. I'll give you that.
Fuck those guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's but you know, I mean, you know, here is an album I can't even listen to anymore.
Yeah. You know. Yeah, it's like literally, you know, when they say that an album, it's yours until it's released, and then it's everybody else's. It's like it's everybody else's before it's even released, because you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
you know?
I've disowned it. Yeah, I've kind of put pain in there and closed it, and that's the end of that, really. And
and Dormata, which is spelt DAW. Yeah. Is that Welsh?
No. So Dormata.
I thought it was the Welsh spelling of door.
Well,
no, said the ignorant Englishman.
Yeah. No, DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. Right. So in the production world, it's, you know, what DAW are you using? We're
sat right at a digital audio workstation right now.
That's exactly it. Yeah, we're sat at a DAW. So basically, because I've of late become a producer, mixer, recording engineer, that I own my own studio, it's massively...
Northstone Studios.
NorthstoneStudios.com.
Yeah, there we go.
It's...
Good rates available.
Yeah, come now.
You can bring your own engineer, you don't have to use Jayce.
Not true.
Subject to terms and conditions.
Yeah, never bring an engineer. Jayce will only do it himself. Yeah. So basically... since I've become really decent at being able to record and produce and mix.
Yeah. Decent? Come on, mate. Let's not go too far.
Okay at recording and acceptable at recording and all that.
Well, it's obvious from your own stuff that you know what you're fucking doing, because it sounds fucking amazing. So, you know.
Oh, well. Check in the post. Oh, no. They don't do checks anymore. I'll PayPal you.
PayPal, please.
Yeah, I'll PayPal your email.
Yeah, your checks in the post.
So since I've become a producer, mix and engineer, it's totally, almost completely changed how I write music now. So I write music knowing the prize.
Yeah, eyes on the prize. You know,
eyes on the prize.
You know the destination.
Exactly.
But and you also know the journey as to how to get to that destination.
Exactly. So whereas before...
no mystery.
Exactly, no mystery at all. So whereas I would write on the guitar and I put it together in the studio, it would almost be like, where is this going to go? Now I already know the finishing line. Yeah. And so it worried me that it was changing my method of writing. So I almost felt as though I was killing, by becoming a recording engineer, it was martyrdom, you know. Yeah. And it was killing off in succession my writing ability because I was more into the production value.
Well, it's turning it's turning something creative into a linear process. So you're basically removing, you're kind of removing inspiration, and you're kind of removing what's the word, ad hoc stuff, and improvisation. Yeah, and everything else.
Well, it was just if I made a mistake, I wouldn't perfect it till it was brilliant. I would fix it in the mix. I know I can fix that in the mix.
Right.
Years ago.
Yes. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
God damn, I wouldn't be doing that. I would be perfecting it until my hands bled, or my Adam's apple wanted to jump out of my voice. Yeah. Out of my throat.
I know that feeling.
Well, yeah, it's happened today.
Yeah.
So that is what that means. It's a real take on technology and just how it's really changed the organicness of how people write music. And
it's a great title, by the way, and the story behind it is
it's
like
and
really
I had to get Burton on it as well, from Fear Factory.
Oh God, yeah.
So Burton was actually Burton did a spoken word that me and him put together, and he did this long spoken word. I think it was several minutes, and I was going to put that on a track called Exhale, because I wasn't sure if I was actually going to have Richard Dawkins recording on my album, which eventually he did.
Right.
Within a day, the day of the end date of needing to get it to the mastering engineer.
Wow.
So what I then thought was I'd use, because Richard Dawkins agreed and I went up to his house and recorded him there, I just used a certain segment of what Burton did and I put that in Dormata. But to the great mistake of a lot of Fear Factory fans, they think that Burton's actually singing on that song in the vocal ranges.
Yes, yeah, because it says featuring,
but he's actually not. It's all me. Burton's just doing the spoken word, and even Burton's soon-to-be wife, Sherry, also thought that it was Burton. She said, "Oh, I recognise my man's vocal prowess any day," and I went, "Well, obviously not, because it's not him, it's me." And she was like, "You are shitting me," and I was like, "No,
Brilliant.
No," but because I think he's been an influence, or that band has been an influence on me for so long, I think I kind of sound like him. I've even had some fan doing a picture of me and Burton. Our faces have been put together.
Right, okay.
And that was very strange. And there was some kind of a conspiracy of some sort building up, whether we were related or because we look similar, we sound similar. But it's none at all. But the weird thing is that Burton's father looks a little like my father. So
easy.
Yeah,
easy.
I know, it's very weird.
Or at least the guy who tells you he's your father.
He was delivering milk for a while, actually.
A little bit more than milk.
No, milk.
So you were well. There's another kind of like inverted commas hero that you've worked with, which is Burton, because I know you're a massive Fear Factory fan.
Yeah, I've been a Fear Factory fan since I was 14. Only 6 years ago. But yeah,
36 years ago.
Yeah, 36. But
it's his 50th on Friday. We're all going
50th. That's what 55. 55. It's just ironic, really, that I was a massive fan of Fear Factory, still am, and now I'm really good friends with Burton. I speak to him daily. We're in a project together called Essential the Watchers, which is a project that he started up 10 years ago, I think. And we're just about to go into recording the album for that here at Northstone. And
is it all written?
It is. Yeah, it's all written.
Wow.
There might be one or two songs that I might put my little oar in, because when I was staying with him in LA, we'd have these drunken nights on the guitar, and I'd start coming up with a riff. And Burton would be like, holy shit, let's record it. And so we got video of us playing it together and on guitars. And it was magical, man. It was just, but very much like the whole Dave Prowse situation. I just see him as Burton, see him as Dave. I don't see him as Darth, and I don't see Burton as from Fear Factory anymore. It's just my mate Burton in LA. It's
so so where does he stay when he comes over?
I
don't know.
Well, it's a big surprise. Well, I've bought my old family home.
Yeah.
And so the spare room used to be my bedroom when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Up until the age of about, I don't know, 21,
right.
22, and then I moved out. And so he stays in that room. Now that room, I was playing Fear Factory day and night, album day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It was nothing but Fear Factory. And so that's where Burton stays. But to my horror, the first time he came over, I cleaned the room up, sorted all the room and whatever. And then we kind of went into closing the door behind us. I needed to vacuum the carpet and whatever. And to my horror, when I closed the door, I had written when I was 15 or 14 in Tipex, Fear Factory rules. And it was emblazoned on the door like a true graffiti rebel that I was.
Yeah, Tipex as well.
Tipex.
Old school.
with and it was not odorless, so fully solvent. So I actually painted this on the back of the door, and I ended up having to scrape it off. But
that is pretty much you've got.
Because I was just thinking, shit, he's gonna see that. Oh my god,
he's gonna shut the door at night and see that and go, hang on, what's going on here? And then he's gonna hear the door click locked.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're staying with me now, Burton. I'm your biggest fan.
The weird thing about it all was that I wasn't going to tell him, and then one night we got really drunk, and then I told him. I just had a moment of just the floodgates have opened, because I said to him, I can't remember I vaguely remember the conversation being. Going on. I think it was. He said that he never has the title track of each song in the actual song, so he doesn't sing the words that the title is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went, that's rubbish. What about Shock, My Grave, Linchpin? And I went on and on and on, this is it. And he said, oh my God, how many other songs do you know? And I said, well, I've got every album. And then I went to my CD rack and I grabbed, 27 years worth of Fear Factory, and I just laid it out in front of him. And he said, oh my God, I've been ripped off.
He said, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Well, yeah, oh my God, who the hell are you?
Yeah, shit, call me an Uber.
It's a bit like the Scooby-Doo thing. Oh, my it's Old Man Joe. Oh my God, it's Old Man Joe. I would have got away with it if you weren't for your pesky kids. Yeah. But I showed him all these albums, and there was like all these albums laid out in front, and Burton was just like, oh my God, this is insane. And then that's when I went in and told him the whole thing about Fear Factory and the writing behind the door.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm gutted. I've told you now. I can't believe it. And
there was no point in sanding it off.
No. And he said, I said, maybe I should have left it on. And then he said, no, I'm glad you did take it off. So
in a very sort of deadpan.
Yeah, it was very dead and panned. Yeah, just so there's that.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So obviously any band recording in the studio can stay in the Fear Factory cell that you have in your house.
Well, we have people staying in the hotel, thankfully. But Burton, I mean, he's coming back over in mid-January, so we'll start production on the Essential to the Watchers album. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a huge success, the Pledge campaign. And
I did. Oh, right. Now that's interesting. I didn't know you had a pledge campaign for that. So what was the figure you were looking to get, and did you achieve it?
I think we were aiming at something like between 15 and 20,000.
Yeah.
And we've got it. Yeah,
Wow.
It's happened. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So it is great. Yeah, and it's surprised me. Right at the last 80%, it just really took off. Burton was messaging me every day saying, Squire, we're up to 82. Now we're up to 84, 88, 89, 100. It was just crazy.
Brilliant.
Very quick.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so, you're not involved because like pledge campaigns. I just no thanks, because the admin behind it is you may as well set up a fucking record label.
Yeah.
Because all of the shit that you've got to try and put up there for the various tiers of contribution, it's just like, oh man, that's just.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you've got to get all the physical product delivered, and you've got to sign all those CDs, or you're going to get, and then it's all got to go out, and it's just. I think it's funny because when it was coming up to recording the album and stuff, and I've said like, we've got an offer from a label, but we're going to shop the album, and a few people have gone like, oh, what about pledge work? And it's like, no, not at all. I think there's definitely a perception out there that pledge is that you just go, hey everyone, can you give us some money to do this? And they go, yeah, sure, and they just all chuck in some money. It's like, no.
Yeah, there's a lot behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we quite realised how much was behind it. But if it goes well, and if pre-planning is the key there. And
yes.
we had so many ideas that I couldn't see it failing. I mean, naturally, what Burn has been subjected to is constant questioning of where's Fear Factory.
Yes.
So I felt for him on that part, but. I mean, that's another band and another story. So,
well, that funnily enough sounds like your Vinnie Paul experience when you were on the road with
with Hell Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really felt for Vinnie. Bless his soul. But Vinnie Paul. I mean, he was there to speak about nothing but Hell Yeah, and was subjected to constant scrutineering of Pantera and reforming Pantera. And I'll never forget the day that he came on the bus really angry and understandably upset, and just said, doesn't anyone remember that my brother got shot in front of me? I saw my brother getting brutally murdered in front of me and an audience, live on stage. It's the last thing I want to do is go back to Pantera or go back to a version of. Yeah. My brother's not around anymore. Why would I do that? And I felt not privilege is not the word. I felt kind of not lucky in the sense that I was witnessing that, but I was one of the very few to be there and see a human being be upset that his brother had been slaughtered in that way in front of everyone.
And that all any selfish fans care about is just get Zakk Wylde and play some shows.
Yeah, just get Zakk Wylde, just get Phil and Rex, and just as you were. And it's like, no guys, I don't think, and they don't see that side of it, And I really felt for him. I really, really did, because that's all he was getting on that tour was Pantera. They were doing VIP meet and greets. I mean, I could probably count how many Hell Yeah albums there were on one finger. It was one. And then the rest of it was Pantera stuff. Yeah. Now he was pretty cool about that. He was, in all fairness, he was signing stuff and it was great. He was really cool. But the press stuff was not good. I felt for him. Really did.
Yeah, and that all off the back of something that somebody else has said quite innocently. Zakk said, "Yeah, I'd do that if that was a thing." Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it just became its
happening.
Whole
it's kosher.
thing.
Yeah,
and it's out there, and now that's a question.
Yeah,
it's bullshit.
Yeah, it was awful. Really awful, and it's just it's a sad, it's a real shame that Vinny's gone. Vinny's died, and Yeah.
There's definitely not going to be a Pantera reunion now.
Definitely not. And
Yeah.
I don't think there ever should have been anyway. I mean...
No, it was only ever a fucking press thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the press kept it going, that's it. But, well, look, I know, like, Million Part 2 is not out until next month.
Yep.
October 21st?
October the 12th.
October the 12th. You see, I got the numbers the wrong way round. I'm numerically dyslexic.
It actually got moved back because I was struggling. You know,
right.
I was actually, I just couldn't get it finished.
And completely understandably.
Yeah.
And I'm now going to ask you the most annoying question that anyone can be asked in this situation, and that is, so, Million Part 2 comes out on October the 12th. After that, what's next? Yeah. I mean, obviously you've got...
That's really annoying.
You've got Ascension of the Watchers in January. I mean... So you've got your Jayce Lewis career, and then there's the Ascension of the Watchers album, and then that's going to need some promo, and there's presumably going to be dates after that and everything else. So do you put your Jayce Lewis career on hold, and and then just kind of...
No, I'll be touring. The whole Jayce Lewis thing will still be happening. The album's done, so we'll be doing tours, and that'll still be going on. Ascension of the Watchers, we'll be writing, and then we'll be looking to tour that. Summertime, I guess.
Right. Okay. Well, if we get our album out by then, you're always welcome to support.
Yeah. Oh, that would be such an honour.
Third on the bill, obviously.
We'll just be your roadies. Actually.
Yeah. Just work the merch store. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But so it's just a case of juggling all of that then.
Yeah. Just spinning of plates. What we all have to do anyway.
And working on projects in here.
Yeah, the studio's taken off. I mean, that's doing really well, and a lot better than I thought it was going to do in its first 2 years.
Well, I know the first time. Well, we were only here in 2017. We were here in February 2017.
Yeah, so you
and you were. Yeah, it was kind of like, I remember a couple of conversations with you actually, because I mean, we were doing vocals, just the two of us, and I remember you saying like, I just want to get some people in.
Yeah.
Want to get some people in the fucking studio.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, the budget for it overran naturally with the building rebuild, because it was a ruin before that.
Hang on, you had a budget and builders went over it? Surely not.
Well, I was one of the builders. That's the messed up thing about that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it went over by, thousands. But yeah, so getting bands in was a big thing, or getting music recorded.
And just getting the word out there.
Yeah, which has happened now, and I mean, in lots of great musicians, and it's great. Yeah, I really love connecting with other musicians, and I feel like I'm collaborating on every album that there is being put out from here now.
Well, you've certainly collaborated on this, and that's why you'll be credited as Jayce Lewis producer, because the whole mess thing is a running joke. I apologise. Yeah. It's very introverted of us.
Yes.
It's very elitist, but
yes.
Fuck it. But yeah, I mean, your input on our album has been up until this point. Has been just really, really, really cool, really enlightening, and it's also good to have somebody who's obviously, you've had your roots in metal, you've come up through metal.
Yeah.
And you're now in a very, but you've also taken on board loads of skills from different genres like dance music and stuff like that. Yeah. And for me as a vocalist working with you, who's also a vocalist, but very different, and working in very different environments, and the way you're able to coach me through, but also throw in ideas, and not just ideas for phrasing and notes and stuff like that, but also the production of it, of the voice as well is
Well, there's that end game solution. There's the end game result that I know I'm wanting to get. Yeah. Dormata.
Dormata, we're back to Dormata.
I mean, I kind of know where I want to go, and I know how things react. I know what microphones react a certain way. I know what's going to push the microphone, and the preamps and the tape, the Neve tape emulation units I've got. I mean, I know everything about the gear I got here and how to make something work. efficiently and to its best.
Yeah.
But it's been, I mean, working on Acid Rain with you guys has been a big thing, you know, for me. It's been a real privileged insight into how you guys work. You know, I mean, you guys have got a heritage from the mid to late 80s. That's not to be ignored and forgotten about. And it's also something for me to be privileged and honoured to be a part of moving forward, you know, on the album.
That is, you know, I've said it once, I've said it twice. That
say it
thrice. Thrice,
yeah.
That you know, I definitely from an album point of view, you know, it's you feel like the sixth member of the band, without a doubt. You know,
yeah, it feels that way to me.
Yeah. Well, we can brutally take the piss out of each other and all the rest of it, and that's when you know, you know, that everything's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, that seems like a really cool place to leave it, Jayce. Thank you very much. Thank you for being as open, as honest as I know you to be.
Thank you very much, Howard. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. Cheers.
Thank you, man. I'm going to shake your hand.
I'm going to shake your
handshake right now.
Handshake right now.
Handshake right now.
Wish you could be here and feel the love. Cheers, man. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Jayce is just a top man, and as you can tell, we're quite friendly. Sorry, I'm just going to turn this up a bit again. So watch the volume. There we go. That's better. Although that's still not... That doesn't seem to be very loud at all, does it? That's weird. Hang on a sec. Right, how's that? Right, okay. Still not right. Hang on. Okay, there we go. And that is me back in the room. So, really enjoyed that. Constantly thinking about you guys, obviously. Thought, record a podcast with Jayce. And really pleased with how that came out. And definitely check some of his music out. I'm a big fan. Big fan. So, what else has been going on in the world of metal? Well, almost exactly the same time as Megadeth announced their Mega Cruise, we get Metallica announcing that they are going to be playing Twickenham and Etihad Stadium. And the usual arguments abound about ticket pricing and all the rest of it. And it's kind of like, well, I really am at the point now with, if you don't want to spend £100 seeing Metallica, fine, then don't. If you feel like you've been priced out or you are being priced out, fine. Nobody has a right. Music is funnily enough, I went and visited Andy Pilkington in his new house whilst I was away on a day off. So ended up recording a podcast at a beer garden. So that will be coming up next month. That one's already in the can. And we were both saying like music is a luxury. Nobody has a right to it, you know. I mean, on the list of things that are important to spend money on every month, you know, music is not on the shopping list. It's on the wants list. It's on the would likes list. So ultimately, if you want to go see him, fine. I mean, a friend of mine said, "Do you want to go and see him?" And I was like, "Nah. You know what? I'm all right." And he was like, "Is it the money?" And I was like, "Do you know what? It kind of, because it's a lot of money. But if I really wanted to go, I'd find the money." But it was more than just the fact that I don't really want to hear songs from Hardwired live ever again. In fact, never mind just fucking live ever. And I just don't get the righteous indignation of people who, I mean, you know, it's like they're sort of consumer watchdogs ranting on about this is dreadful and all the rest of it. And it's like, well, just don't go, you know, just don't go. I mean, it would appear that if they could have afforded it, you know, they probably wouldn't have gone anyway. I mean, what price is right? What price is right? Look, ultimately, it will sell out, which means that they've got their price point right. Simple as that. You know, if you feel like you've been priced out of going to see Metallica, wow, there are fucking first world problems. Yeah, there is bigger fish to fry in the world, and there should be with your bloody lives than Metallica are charging £100 for a ticket. I mean, there really are bigger issues. Having said that, and I've said it before, another reason for not going is I believe Lars is now asleep on the job behind the kit, and if he'd only put the effort and the dedication into practicing drums that he puts into putting each set list together every night and overseeing every new remaster and all the rest of it, if he put that kind of energy and focus into what he does behind the kit, he'd be fucking Dave Lombardo, for fuck's sake. Well, he wouldn't, would he? No, not really. So obviously the other big thing that's happened, it's only just happened, and that is Dave McClain and Phil Demmel to leave Machine Head. Yes, and according to Rob Flynn, pretty much his fault. Very, very honest. I mean, you can say what you like about Rob Flynn, but he is occasionally brutally honest, and you know, to his detriment. But he's basically said, look, you know, I think he's been holding on to the band too. I think basically the other members have got sick of either not having a say, be it musically or in the band business wise or whatever. But they're stepping away and leaving, and you know, the bass player is going to stay. He says that he's going to carry on. It's not the end of Machine Head. They're going to do it. They're doing one final tour in the States, and they're going to do it, you know, with happy memory. They want happy memories of this lineup and all the rest of it. So, you know, fair play. I think I've always said, you hear me say it in interviews, you can't knock honesty. And ultimately, your opinion of Rob Flynn is what it is, but you can't knock honesty. And he is really, really honest. And, you know, pretty much the statement is pretty much him blaming himself for them leaving. Now, the irony is that in the next interview, myself and No Friender of the Thrash Metal Podcast talk about what a great feel-good story it is that Phil Demmel ended up in Machine Head after being in Violence. And, of course, that's all gone to shit. So, yes, I had a lovely, lovely chat with No Friender, which you're going to hear now. We did an hour together. We did an extra hour that's going to be on the that's on the Patreon version of the podcast. So feel free to sign up anytime you like. Patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. Just $5 a month. It's less than probably a decent cup of coffee. It's certainly less than 2 cups of coffees. It's less than a pint of beer pretty much worldwide. Anyway, that's enough of that. It's always exclusive. Happens every month. Join the party if you want. Anyway, you are going to get an hour from myself and No Friender now. When we were chatting just a few weeks ago, it was one Saturday morning, we had a right old natter, and it is all about thrash metal. So this one is no doubt for the old school. This is My Frat with... My Frat? That's my chat with No Friender, and it's come out to be My Frat. Okay, fine. Here's My Frat with No Friender.
Howard, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing well as well. Just waking up, shaking off the cobwebs.
Yeah, because it's kind of early where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually up at this time, but I'm not usually actually needing to be semi-coherent at this time. So.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I had a bit of a late one last night. I was doing a spoken word show in London, and then we had a bit of an after show at another metal bar, and yeah, so it all got a bit messy.
I don't even have that excuse. I was early to bed, and it's just, you know, I'm lazy. So,
so what do you do? What do you do for a day job?
I'm an attorney at a company, so I negotiate contracts, things like that.
Right. Okay. So pretty heavy shit. You need to be on the ball.
Yeah, you know, I wing it enough to stay employed.
Yeah. That's the goal, isn't it? It helps if you have something that pays the bills.
That is the key. Keep the bills coming, paid, and the bill collectors away from the house. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, thanks for coming on and doing this. It's kind of weird when you listen to a podcast and you kind of get used to somebody's voice. Talking to you now seems like the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, same with you, because, I just found out, what was it, it just seemed like just a few weeks back when I think you had part one of the Slayer, extravaganza, and I think it was DX Ferris had, tweeted it, and I'm like, why haven't I never heard of this before? This is like right up my alley. And then I go through your back catalog, and I'm listening to, I love the ones with, Blitz from Overkill, and, some of the other, Slayer ones you did and stuff, just catching up on sort of the ones that first catch my attention. And yeah, now we're talking, and it's like, like we know each other.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of odd, isn't it? Well, you've got loads of thrash metal to go through, because there's Flotsam and Jetsam are in there. Death. I mean, if the further you go back, there's Flotsam and Jetsam. There's Death Angel. There's Scott Ian. It goes quite a way back.
Yeah.
So I try and keep. I'm trying to get at least sort of somebody from the world of thrash every month. But sometimes, I'm fine with kind of going off piste, as it were, and just doing different things and getting different people who have varying connections to the music business on, because I want to try and keep it interesting.
No, definitely, because that's the thing that, from a fan standpoint, I mean, knowing that there's so many elements in the industry that you don't even really appreciate or know about. So I'm into that, those different perspectives on things, especially just going back when you had like Malcolm Dome and Xavier Russell. I mean, those are guys who were in the trenches when this was just starting. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Malcolm for years, and he's probably, with the exception of Godless, formerly of the, oh God, I can't remember what their podcast was called now. But I've had Malcolm on. He's usually on at least once a year, and is generally, it's generally accepted that he was the first person to use the term thrash metal, which is like, what a thing to have, attached to your name.
And he nailed it, because it's the perfect. It's the perfect word. At the beginning, you hear a lot of the guys and Slayer and the other bands. I mean, they didn't name what they were doing. Maybe they would actually use the word speed metal or this or that. But to me, thrash metal nails it. It's like, I always think in my mind, speed metal, that's a little different. That's a little more like Exciter or something.
Yeah.
Thrash is that little different element, and it's the perfect, to me, descriptor for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's thrashing all around, as Hetfield says in in Whiplash, and it's kind of, I guess it kind of comes from there, if anything. But there is, and speed metal is something that I always think it's a really kind of reductive name. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you play at a really fast speed and it's metal. There you go, speed metal. And it's like,
exactly. Yeah.
I think there's a little bit more to it than that. It's,
there's a little bit more of a bite, a little bit more, a little more than hardcore element, where it's a little angrier, a little, the vocals, speed metal, if it exists, gonna have more clean vocals, and it could work, for the most part. Thrash metal's got to have a little bit of bite into the vocals,
Yeah, I kind of think that speed metal is one step towards power metal.
Yeah.
Power metal's not really something I've got that much investment in. I mean, I think I like everyone at the time. I liked the first. I got Walls of Jericho. I liked that, and then Keeper of the Seven Keys. It went less thrash, but it was still, you couldn't deny the quality. And I went to see Halloween and Overkill on that tour. But by the time part 2 came out, it was just kind of a little bit, I'm not so sure about this.
It's like at the time, there was a lot of bands could go one of two directions, and the first album for a lot of bands, whether they end up being thrash or they ended up going power metal or whatever the direction, the first album for a lot of these bands was similar, and then it's just a matter of, okay, which direction are they going with that second album? And the thrash bands went thrashier, for the most part, and then the other bands, went more, in the power metal direction, more sort of operatic or something, and so that was sort of a lot of those albums in the 83, 84 time period, those debut albums. It was the next album that sort of firmly embedded where the band was going.
And it's weird as well, because I think, power metal is such a kind of accepted term these days, and it's kind of weird to think back that everybody pretty much credits Halloween with the invention of power metal, them being the forebearers of it, and it's weird because it just sort of snuck up on me one day, because I just thought with Halloween it was just all right, they've gone a little bit lighter, a little bit more melodic, and then a few years down the line suddenly you see there's this entire genre and you think, wow, where did that come from? It just seemed to spring up overnight.
Yeah.
And still going strong today. I mean, it's I don't know. I always see it as a more European thing. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with that. Absolutely. I think it's, and like you, it never really, I mean, I'm aware of it. I have no problem with it, but it's just not, it was never the direction that is sort of my default. My as time went on, my preference was thrash, and that sort of, anything else, I might have a phase where I'm like, yeah, I'm into this a little bit, but it keeps coming back with thrash as sort of the main music that, keeps me going. I play the drums, and so from a drumming standpoint, that's what thrash drumming. I mean, basically every morning I'll go in my, I'm in the room right now, like my drum room I built in my house, and it's like, I pretend I'm Dave Lombardo for 40 minutes, so.
Excellent. Well, that's really cool. Is that Dave Lombardo in Slayer, or is that Dave Lombardo in Film, or is that Dave Lombardo in Grip Inc., or is that Dave Lombardo in Suicidal Tendencies, or is that Dave Lombardo in Fantomas?
It's Dave Lombardo about on the figure on the Decade of Aggression era Dave Lombardo.
Yay!
I'm pretty much there playing that set list. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, we're going to start wormholing on Slayer here, and that's going to end up being another Slayer special.
Yeah.
I haven't even got to your specials with on Jeff Hanneman. I mean, you go really, really deep into your topics when you do them. I mean, the 4-part series on Peace Sells But Who's Buying, which I arrived at in the middle of it, which is great because you discovered my podcast, and then that meant that I was able to discover yours, which is awesome because I think your podcast is right up my street, my podcast is right up your street. This is just it's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we hit it from two different angles. You're an actual person on the recording, and I'm just talking with myself in an empty room, so it's good to sort of tackle it from two different approaches, but we're covering a lot of the same topics.
Yeah, and I think I like the way you. I mean, without wanting to become a mutual appreciation society, which for everyone listening is like, oh, guys, get a room. Do we have to listen to this?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Well, I mean, that is the plan, by the way. After this, we are getting a room, but we'll leave that for later.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, you really break it down. I'm encouraging people who are listening to this to listen to it, because there's, you really break down into the granular information, and that all ties in with the fact that you're an attorney now, so that all makes sense in my head. So that's great. I understand the approach now.
It's funny because it started out that so that the site that hosted it, whenitwascool.com. The owner of that site is a guy named Carl Stern, and he has been podcasting forever. Not through this website. This is sort of a new venture of his the last couple of years, but he's actually really embedded in has been podcasting and writing about the history of pro wrestling for forever. And so being a fan of that growing up, and just like with the history of thrash, I'm into the history of things. And so I would listen to his, podcasts that were, hosted elsewhere. And then when he started to, do this venture that was, more broadly pop culture based, he was looking for people to do something. And so I had an idea, but it was totally unrelated to what, to music at all. And then, but it was just involving too much, work and so forth. And all of a sudden, I just picked up my phone, pressed record, and started doing that very first episode, which ended up being like 18 minutes. I've never done, anything like this before. And it was like the longest 18 minutes of my life. Like I just talked about off the top of my head about sort of the origins of, the origins of thrash, how it sort of came to be. And when I was done, I was like, wow, that felt like, forever. I'm like, how do these people like record an hour or 2 hour podcast? It was like, incredible. And then I ended up giving it to him, and he liked it, he hosted it. So then like, the first 8 episodes basically are, shorter, and they cover who I call sort of the original 6 of thrash, being Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, Exodus, Overkill, and Megadeth. And then kind of wrap it up with the 8th episode is sort of like just a recap of everything. And then, from there, it started to grow where we got to longer series. Actually, the first multi-part series was actually, of all bands, I did a 3-parter on violence. And
now you're talking, man.
Yeah,
I haven't even got that far back, but fucking hell. Funnily enough, I posted some short videos of guitars being laid down for the new Acid Rain album, and our guitarist is wearing a Violence t-shirt while he's laying it down.
To me, violence, there is no, I talk, I think it's rather universal that, kind of Slayer is the standard bearer for thrash, pure thrash. And, with Rain and Blood, this being like, if you just cut out all the nonsense, that is thrash. If the aliens came down and wanted to know what thrash is, that's what you show them. At the same time, as a band, it's hard to point to a band that is, in my opinion, any more emblematic of thrash than Violence. I mean, it's just, they're just, the music is abrasive as it gets. You have Sean Killian as a singer who wasn't even a singer. He was just hanging out with the band. They needed a singer, and he's got a voice that is just unlike anyone else. I mean, it's definitely a love-hate voice, and then just the lyrics, the gang vocals, just the abrasiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, Violence it's perfect name for a band, and again, we're not the success that other thrash bands were, but it's hard to beat just as far as the embodiment of everything that thrash was, Violence.
I completely agree. I mean, I'm a huge Violence fan. I traded an Acid Rain shirt with Steve Zetro when we were on tour with Exodus all those years ago. I traded an Acid Rain shirt for a Violence Eternal Nightmare tour t-shirt.
That you still have it?
Unfortunately, no. It fell apart in the end, but I am wearing it in the video that we did for probably one of our biggest singles back in the day called Humanoia, and I'm wearing it in that video. So sometimes I watch the video and mourn the passing of the t-shirt.
Yeah, no. I mean, that is. I mean, an actual vintage Violence t-shirt from that era. That is something that that's about as good as it gets. So that's almost a holy grail of thrash memorabilia. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm gutted I still don't have it. I had a Dark Angel Leave Scars shirt as well, which Gene gave me, and I fucking don't know what happened to that. Yeah, I know.
Well, there's that point where, to me, I think I had some cool stuff too, and then there's a certain point, where, and now I'm full of regret, where I'm like, yeah, I don't need this. And I'm like, I'd kill for that shirt or whatever I had. I'm like, I would just put it up on my wall or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would if I still had the fucking thing. It's a real shame. Real shame.
One of the great oddities of Hey.
Hi, man. Sorry about that. I got a fucking phone call which knocked Skype off. So I missed that. So what I did hear was that something about you went to see Nuclear Assault.
So it was actually a story about my drum teacher had told me back, this is going back, 25 years, that he in the late 80s had gone to a music conference, an industry conference, of some kind, relating to metal in the city, in New York City, and Nuclear Assault was there, and they were distributing Nuclear Assault raincoats. I mean, if we're talking about, one of the odder pieces of memorabilia. Unfortunately, he doesn't have it, but to me, that is another item that if someone has that, that's about as good as it gets.
That is completely insane. Yeah, that.
It's probably tied into the Handle with Care album or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a rational reason of why they made a raincoat.
Well, then again, there was I don't know if you had it in the States. Did you have the Violence 10-inch single that came in the bag of puke?
I don't remember that, but I remember you were mentioning that, I think, on one of the podcasts I listened to recently. But yeah, I mean, there's the barf bag. Yeah.
It was fucking, and it dried out after years. It really didn't work. It was a bit like when Slayer did released a single in a blood pack. I think they released Seasons in the Abyss. I think came in the blood pack.
Yes.
And
with the floating skulls in there and stuff.
Yes, that's right. And it years later it's just dried up and looks shit. But yeah, no, you just they were awesome little bits and pieces. The things that people tried to do. I'm just trying to think. Actually, that set my mind off on all these odd bits and pieces that people put out, but it was mainly just kind of picture discs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the things, there's probably other things out there, but they're just so few in number, and unfortunately, people, we needed someone who was sort of thinking ahead to this era. There'd be a great thrash exhibit at a museum where we could have all these oddities. But probably the chances of that happening are low.
Well, Jamie Jaster is always going on about creating a hard Hall of Fame, but I think that would just be mainly hardcore stuff like that. It would be great to have some sort of thrash metal royalty where you get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And you start with Metallica. You obviously, I think, like you said, instead of the big four, you get the original six in there, and then your next tier, which has got to be your Testaments and your Creators and people like that. Yeah. That would be really cool. Apart from it's like everything else, isn't it? You've got to get somebody to sponsor it, and it's got to be and then it's not happening unless
there's no chance.
Yeah, unless you and I get our minds together and make this happen, it's not going to happen.
So it's not going to happen is the bottom line.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, so one of the things I found is that hardcore, there's a ton of documentaries on hardcore. There are a lot of books on it. The Rolling Stones of the magazine, the press, they love to wax poetic on hardcore. It's this important, not just music, but it's this important movement. And thrash, for the most part, gets just sort of tossed to the side as this, of course they're going to cover it, the big bands in thrash, as it's relevant. But as a sort of music form, it's never gotten the respect that hardcore got. And when you think about actual enduring bands and not that sales is record sales and concerts, sort of fan numbers and stuff is the be all end all, but in comparison, thrash is just far more impactful and popular from that standpoint, but it's never gotten the respect that hardcore does. And I think part of it too is that hardcore, a little more political, and also sort of the right kind of political for Rolling Stone and other things. So that's why I think it gets just this massive, sort of, or it gets covered as being enormously important. And I think disproportionate to its actual, impact. And it's not taken away from music. It's, anyone who's into hardcore, I have no problem with that. It just happens to be I'm into thrash, and I recognize the impact that hardcore had on thrash, but it just seems that it's a more certainly from a press standpoint, a mainstream music press standpoint, a much more revered form of music.
Yeah, do you know what? I was listening to you there, and I was thinking, do you know what the word that springs to mind? It seems to be perceived as more worthy.
Absolutely.
Like because of the political aspect, which not everybody has. But I think, yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and there's definitely a gap in the market there somewhere for a real, a thrash book. But funnily enough, one book I think that you would absolutely love is the history of UK thrash metal that just came out recently.
I got to get my hands on that, because that's an area that I don't have as much knowledge of, and I did an episode. A few months, I think it's in the 40s, as far as episode 40 something or whatever, and I called it sort of, the first, I said thrash spreads to Europe, and then there was a specific episode on UK, and what I was noting is that, up until thrash, you start with Black Sabbath, obviously, then the next big band being Priest, and Motorhead.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going with this. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
All the innovation from the creation of it, and this extends to rock in general. The creation of and evolution of metal was, if not exclusively, a UK thing. I mean, it was certainly a European thing, but really a UK thing. And then, through, and then new wave of British heavy metal, sort of that final stop. And then it's thrash that gets sort of created from that in American. I think of thrash as like the first sort of American metal, innovation.
Yeah, the tide. It was the tide turning, because I think there was thrash, and almost vying for the same position is kind of hair metal, and is the way because your Motley Crues and your Poisons and all started coming through, and all of a sudden you're absolutely right. The tables were turned, and UK bands were looking to the States for inspiration. And instead of, it's like, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Metal comes up in the UK, then that influences American bands and creates thrash and hair metal, and then thrash and hair metal start influencing bands in the UK, and it's just, it's kind of like, it's change cycle, if you like.
Yeah, no, and then it just goes back and forth, and then you bring in Germany, thrash, which I think, we got Creator, and I mean, those bands, are, I think, very influential in the thrash wing. I mean, obviously Slayer is, but very influential as far as getting death metal going. Because I think, I've always wondered, when you look at Sodom, Destruction, Creator, the vocals are even more abrasive than anything in the States, really. And in part, I've always wondered, is it, they're singing in English, but English is not their first language. Is there that added element that sort of inherently made them sing more abrasive, or is it just the style that came out of there? And either way, from a vocal standpoint, I think they were, and then of course with Possessed, in the San Francisco Bay Area. But the vocal styles there really, I think, spearheaded, going in the death metal, barking, growl direction.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that you can make a case. You can make a case, and some people do, and I'm not saying I am, but you can make a case for the first thrash band really being Venom.
Absolutely, and I did an episode on it, and they're like right, just. I think think of them as almost as the missing link. They're so close. Not exactly. They're more or less the final frontier before it was like pure thrash. But and as you said, you can make a case they're the first thrash band. They're the first black metal band. They're the first. Yeah. I mean, they're just such an awesome anomaly in that, from a musicianship standpoint. Obviously, those first albums, they were self-admittedly not competent, but somehow they pulled it together, and despite their limitations, made these albums that were just hugely influential.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, having those early albums and loving it. And I think the weird thing is, if you go back and you listen to those early albums, you go back and you listen to Welcome and Welcome to Hell, and let's face it, black metal is the name of a Venom album. I mean, if you want to make a case for anyone, inventing genres, you've got it right there. And then you've got A War with Satan up to Possessed, which is all right. But you look at those albums now, and you put those albums on today, and I still listen. I can still listen to those albums and go, do you know what? I still don't know what fucking genre this is.
Absolutely, it's just their own. They stand alone, and it's funny too, when you listen to those albums too. One of the qualities that's great about it that can't be faked, and it's almost like it can't even be you can't even. I don't think you could go in a studio right now and say, I want to make an album that sounds like, Welcome to Hell. It's just that quality, and I liken it to when you had I think the round table on Rain and Blood, and it's an observation I made when I was covering the album, and when I'm talking of Hell Waits. But as awesome as the production on Rain and Blood is, and the production, the engineering, because I think it gets a lot of times focused on Rick Rubin and his production, but it's really, I think it's the engineering of Andy Wallace. Rick Rubin took the excess reverb out of it, but the engineering of Andy Wallace is what made that album a crucial part. The shorter songs, yes, the songwriting, yes, everything, the performances. But the engineering and making it, crystal clear. It's the first album in thrash that was, I think, really had engineering designed for thrash. Yeah. But with Hell Awaits, I forget whether it was you or someone else on the panel. It was the word I was looking for. Malevolence. There's some quality to that. Hand up over here. That was me. Now, and when I was covering Hell Waits, and I think also when I was covering Rain and Blood, not that word, but that's what I was trying to convey. There is a quality, almost an unease, but there's something to the end result that, and I don't know whether it's, it's just, you don't know you could not recreate that. I don't know how anyone, maybe now it's Pro Tools or something. There's some program that would be like, here's the Hell Waits module. We recorded the album. Now, you want it to sound like Hell Waits? Maybe there's a button you can press that says, all right, now it's down to Hell Waits. But same thing goes for those early Venom albums. There's just a quality there that there's that similar malevolence on those albums that, where did that come from? For certain, the people who were making those albums, the engineers, they weren't getting top shelf, engineers. It was just what happened, and those albums are, to me, sometimes people say, oh, what would Hell Waits sound like? Oh, I'd love to hear Hell Waits with, Rain and Blood production. That would be cool. On the flip side, I want to hear Rain and Blood with Hell Waits production.
yeah, I know what you mean. It's just so of its time, and also I think the thing about the songs on Hell Awaits as well is things like Kill Again and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They are just really, because by the time we get to Rain in Blood, they've started to do slightly kind of social commentary. Jesus Saves. Angel of Death is actually factual as opposed to demons and shit like that. It's like Hell Awaits is kind of like the ultimate evil era for Slayer.
Yeah, one of my favorite aspects of that album is at the very beginning of Crypts of Eternity, there's that one bass note that Tom Araya plays that just sort of rings out, and obviously bass player is like last on the list of things that are prominent, But that album has more bass than most of them, and there's that note that I'm like, that is like the most. I don't know, I'm a drummer, so I don't know whether the note is like E, D, whatever it is, but that note played that way, it was like, to me, that's evil personified, that one note.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know it is just kind of like, I don't know. It's just weird, isn't it? It's such an odd thing on the album as a whole. Although there is there's Slayer's, I think, one and only bass break is I'm trying to think what song on.
It's a praise of death.
Praise of Death. That's it. Yeah. It's and
I love that song. I mean, that song.
Yeah.
I haven't played that since, probably the Rain and Blood tour. And like, to me, I love that song. And it's funny because that's Kerry King wrote all the music on that, and he doesn't like it. Like, to me, it's sort of, it's funny because when you look at the Slayer set lists, I mean, they're to this day dominated by Hanneman songs, and rightfully so. You'd almost figure, hey, if Kerry wanted to throw in a little more Kerry songs, that's one that I would throw in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's weird because it's the only bass break. It's actually kind of hardcore. You know what I mean? It's actually kind of, it harks back to a very it's a very hardcore kind of thing to do. Just that one little line, and then everybody's off again.
Yeah, interestingly enough, any other times in Slayer song, like the rare moments where there's like just bass for a second, the bass, now that you mention it, does come across more as hardcore than, say, another, like metal, whatever. When Frank Bello's just playing bass, it doesn't sound like hardcore. Maybe Dan Wilker gets that too a little bit because he's definitely has that hardcore background, maybe more than anyone in thrash. So, but no, when Tom's playing just the brief moments in the catalog of Slayer that have just bass for a moment, I mean they do more have a hardcore sound to them.
Yeah, and they do. Look, we're going to disappear on Slayer here, and I want to skip across to, you did a 4-part special on Peace Sells But Who's Buying, which is great. I really enjoyed it. There was stuff in there that I didn't know. I mean, I've read Dave's book. I haven't read Dave Alefson's book, and I was just kind of interested as to what made you pick out that album to do a special on.
So the series, the entire sort of thrash series I'm doing, from beginning to end, I mean, wherever the end it takes us, is chronological for the most part. In that, the first sort of 8 episodes, as I told you, where I was going in the order of, the original 6, I called them that because they were like more or less, and there's one exception, the first 6 albums, like thrash albums, to be the first 6 debut thrash albums to be released, so to speak. Now, there was an asterisk because actually after I noticed that Dark Angel's first album snuck in there, but it wasn't a wide release. It was sort of, it wasn't more widely released until after Killing Is My Business. But there's the whole series. It's a chronological approach, and so we did, particularly after the 3-parter on violence, where the shows in the series got more and more in depth. I think after that, I did a 7-parter on the first, 5 years of Anthrax, sort of covering the formation through spreading the disease, where they really sort of became the Anthrax, like the classic lineup of Anthrax. And then after that, I did 4 parts on the beginning of the founding through Killing Is My Business for Megadeth. And then I did 5 parts on Master Public, 7 parts on Rain and Blood. So the progression, we're in 1986 now. And then for a while, I just did more one-off episodes because, the big series, they do take a lot of time to sort of get the information in order. So I needed a break from that. But then coming back to it, it was time to, chronologically, the next album, we're in 1986, looking at Puppets and Rain and Blood. And the next up was, the obvious choice was Peace Sells. And so, fortunately, with Peace Sells and with covering Megadeth, we have 2 books, Dave's book, the 2 Daves books. So
yeah.
They give, and then of course what you can find online and through other sources. But it was time to do Peace Sells, and I just think when I was, first into thrash, late 80s and in the early 90s, and I'm looking at, that's, for Megadeth, the Marty Friedman, Nick Menzel lineup, and it was, you looked at it then more as an outsider. Like, the first two albums had, Chris Poland and Gar Samuelson, and then there's So Far So Good, So What, and that lineup obviously was not enduring. But in my mind, just looking at them, I'm thinking these are stable lineups. Like the band was, the two Daves, Gar and Chris Poland, and it was amazing to me that when you look at for that time period, I mean, it really wasn't a band. It was because Gar and Chris, came on like right towards the tail, right before the recording of Killing Is My Business, and they had their their jazz background together, fusion, and there was just so much disruption, so much dysfunction, more so than any other band of their contemporaries. That by the time I was going through those two books and reading other sources, I'm like, they weren't even a band. It was basically the two Daves were Megadeth, and then there was these hired hands. Every band was drinking. All these bands for the most part. Some of the bands were doing some of the individual members, Cliff Burton, Dan Wilker, and others were smoking pot. I know Tom Araya and Jeff Hammond had their brief cocaine phase, but
as can be witnessed on the inner sleeve of Hell Awaits.
Yes.
Yes.
But the level of drug use in Megadeth, which was known, but it is astonishing when you think about it. I mean, when you read these books, and you're just like, how did they survive?
Well, it's not just how did they survive, though, is it? It's not just how did they survive. It's how did they actually even manage to put out a fucking record. I mean, the incompetence and the pervasive drug use and need to score, and as you rightly called it, get well, was I think the difference between, and you look into this very well on the podcast, the difference between Gar and Chris and the two Daves was Gar and Chris, their main function, their main goal of the day from waking up would be to score, whereas the two Daves would be to do the gig. And I think that's a kind of sort of dividing line.
Yeah, and as much as, there's that dispute with Chris to this day between Chris Poland and the two Daves as far as why, and this was something I didn't even know until I was reading their books, that, the first Killing Is My Business tour, Chris was not on that tour. It was Mike Albert, a guitarist that they just sort of got. And I think, they say he was in Captain Beefheart at some point. And so it was Mike Albert, who's, 10, 12 years older than them, the lead guitarist on the very first Killing Is My Business tour. But the dispute to this day is that, Chris, Dave, the two Daves say in their books that Chris was arrested on some drug charge and he was not available. Whereas Chris says, no, that's BS. I quit because I wasn't, there was a T-shirt or a merchandise deal, and I was supposed to get my share, and I wasn't getting any. And to me, for one, I mean, to be frank, I mean, I don't know what the band member agreement was at that, like formally, like the actual, partnership agreement, even if there was one. I don't know who signed the record deal, like, so who actually was legally Megadeth at that point. But to be frank, it's like, Chris, I don't think you deserve that. I mean, I don't know that it's unreasonable if you weren't getting any of that merchandise money at that point. I mean, you were just barely in the band, and while he recorded the album, the band really was the two Daves, with, of course, Dave Mustaine being the clear leader. But so whatever the story was there, I mean, it was, I mean, as you said, I mean, the two Chris's, two Chris's. Chris and Gar were about scoring, and getting their joy. And they really, I mean, as far as I can tell, for the most part, they brought the heavy drug use into Megadeth. I mean, Dave would try, had tried obviously alcohol before then and tried things before then, but they brought, the heavy drug use into Megadeth, and they were also this was a gig for them. This was not their passion. This was, okay, let's see if we can earn a living doing this. And so I think the drug use, the lack of, sort of love for metal, it was inevitable that they weren't going to be in that band long. But at the same time, the 2 albums they made, I mean, yes, Dave Mustaine's songwriting, but they're absolutely shaped by the jazz background of Gar and Chris, and I think Gar in particular, just because his drumming, those albums weren't going to sound the same with just a more conventional metal drummer.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the drummer in Acid Rain is a massive Gar Samuelson fan. In fact, I'm looking at a CD copy of the Fatal Opera album. Which he's lent me at the moment, which is obviously Gar's band. But I without wanting to disappear on a tangent from that point, I actually heard that it was Chris and Gar that basically turned around to Dave, and because they came from a jazz world, they said, like, you have to do heroin if you're going to be a great. All the greats.
Yeah. Now you mention it, yeah, and that was sort of and that was the jazz culture. Like all their going back, to the 20s or even earlier, heroin was just embedded in jazz. It's kind of weird to think of it that, from someone who's not, a student of jazz. I mean, you think of jazz and I'm thinking like, oh, these are serious, musicians who are just experts at their craft, and they are. But I mean, to think of culture of heroin of all drugs, like, that's sort of, I still think of that as like sort of the final frontier of drug use. I mean, that's the one that even, typically people who are, engaged in, drugs. I mean, that's sort of one that, like, all right, I don't know if I want to take that heroin step. I mean, that usually doesn't end well, So
that's it. Yeah, there's no coming back from that. That's the one that really fucks your life up.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is kind of. It is weird. It's possibly their greatest legacy, other than their performances on those first 2 albums, is the drug use, and it is quite amazing to think that through all of this drug-addled haze that we got such high quality product.
It really is. I mean, it was almost, you'd love to be able to see. Like, it would be amazing. You had a year and a half of Life of Metallica where they recorded, documented on video everything, about recording the Black Album. It would be amazing to have seen, like, the same for the recording of Peace Cells or the recording of Killing Is My Business. It would have been an absolute train wreck, but I mean, completely, compelling.
Well, even a documentary on So Far So Good So What, or
oh yeah,
I mean that it was just fraught with problems, and quite a few of which you can actually hear. The production itself was always something that was the band were never happy with.
Yeah.
And I think you see a direct. It's funny. I think if So Far So Good So What hadn't been kind of so universally greeted as a bit of a disappointment, and the band weren't happy with it, I think if that hadn't been, as inverted commas, as poor as it was, then we maybe wouldn't have got the high watermark that is Rust in Peace.
I mean, that's it too, because you said the production's a little muddy on So Far So Good So What. I mean, just even the songs themselves. I mean, there's good stuff on there, but they're a
502.
That
hey,
album,
hey, shithead, pull over! It's the cops.
Yeah.
Really, Dave? Really, Dave? You can't hire an actor? We know that's you. This is something that I have mentioned before. Actually, have you ever noticed how whenever there's like another voice needed on a Megadeth album, it's always Dave going, "I'll do it," and he'll run into the booth and do it. It's like, for Lucretia, we know it's you, Dave.
Yeah.
It's just like he's always in there doing his voices.
and then what was it? Because then there's some on Countdown to Extinction, like with what's the one? Captive Honor, where it's like your soul better belong to Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Because your ass belongs to me.
Yeah, which I can only imagine Dave absolutely loved doing. But there's this inbuilt. I don't know whether it's the controlling nature of him, or whether it's just the fact that he doesn't want anybody else on his album. But it always cracks me up that he's always doing these like silly voices. It's kind of like there's quite a few as you go back through the Megadeth history. There is actually quite a few of them. It's just like
it's his various personalities. Maybe Dave doesn't even know. It's like he's just doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ultimate of all this, of course, is hello me, meet the real me.
Yeah,
it's like that.
That's just a biography, I think.
Yeah, that's just a whole fucking song of Dave doing his voices. That's I can just imagine in the studio going, right, okay, that's evil Dave. Now you need to do good Dave. Do you need do you need a bit of time to acclimatise, to switch personalities? It's quite amusing. But look, I'm interested in your personal journey as well. I mean, how did you discover thrash? And kind of are we similar ages? I'm kind of thinking we are.
I'm 42.
Oh, right. Okay, so I got some years on you. I'm 48.
Yeah, and so it's fun. So I have 3 older sisters. I'm the youngest. So you can clearly see that. You can probably guess that I was not introduced to thrash from my sisters. But growing up, that was when mid '80s when I started to sort of be aware of anything. That was when MTV was happening, and if we're in the car or whatever, I mean, I'm not the one who got to choose what we're listening to. So my exposure was whatever was sort of the top 40 radio. And then the pivotal moment was when a friend of one of my friend's older brothers, a couple of years older, played this mixtape, which was like a copy of a copy of a copy, that the one sort of rogue and metalhead in the school, I guess, had put together, and it somehow got distributed, and played that. And on that was Jump in the Fire, and then Last Caress, Metallica version, and then also Nuclear Assault, Hang the Pope, and Lesbians. And I remember hearing that, and it's like, that was sort of my entryway. And I think also around that time, too, just maybe slightly before that, is when I started getting into Iron Maiden. And because we would go, and that actually started with, there was a record store in town, when those things existed. And you went in there, and they had all the Iron Maiden posters, those awesome, Derek Riggs, Eddie posters and such. And I'm like, saw them, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And so we listened, and so it was kind of Iron Maiden, and maybe even like Motley Crue, the Girls era, or Theater of Pain, where we started, as young, rebellious lads started to going in a direction. I was distancing myself from, what my sisters were listening to, but it was that mixtape that sort of elevated things to, right, Jump in the Fire, Hang the Pope, and Lesbians, or this is something different. And so from there, got Kill 'Em All, discovered, Metallica, was big into Nuclear Assault at that point. And then it's funny, and then it was always in the back, like Slayer. That seemed a little bit, like, they're like, are these guys, like, I hadn't listened to them yet, but they almost seem like, oh, that's just inherently something about it. They're a different, notch up as far as the intensity. It was almost like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then finally, another friend's older brother, he was like the ultimate metalhead. He had everything, and this was, I don't have money at the time. I'm not, I'm in school, and so he was sort of the source of, back when you would copy cassettes, and I was just getting cassettes of everything from him. And, and that's when, it just escalated in all the major thrash bands at the time. And again, whatever it was, thrash is what, resonated with me. I mean, I love Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, and so forth, but from, it was always thrash that, really sunk its teeth into me. And then again, from when I decided to start, I'm like, I want to play an instrument. I'm like, I was drawn to drums. And from a drumming standpoint, that's when I think I really started getting drawn to Slayer, because, Dave's drumming is, a class different from, his contemporaries. I mean, it's great. I mean, there's other greats. I mean, on the albums, Lars was good, live, not quite as much, as far as replicating what's on, obviously Dyer's Eve and things like that. But it was, Charlie Benante is great and so forth, but I think, aside from just the music, I don't particularly really, want to boil it down to Hanneman's music for the most part, but between, Slayer is what just really sunk its teeth into me, and being in Jersey, I mean, Overkill, became another one of my favorites, and it just went from there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned a few things there, and I'm all over the map thinking like of which part of what you said I want to kind of wormhole on next, but funnily enough, just on the end there, you picked you mentioned somebody who I think does not get enough props in the world of thrash, and that is Charlie Benante.
Think about Charlie, man. I mean, he is an outstanding drummer, and then he's writing all the music.
I know. It's
incredible.
It is absolutely fucking nuts, is what it is.
I mean, it's mind-blowing that he is writing all that music. I mean, from, basically, spreading the disease on. I mean,
yeah,
he's Anthrax. I mean, lyrically, Scott Ian's Anthrax, but musically, it's Charlie. And it's amazing that you have a band that always had two guitarists, whoever they are, have a bass player, and the drummer is writing all the music. It's incredible.
And also, do you know what? What's really amazing is the fact that he, as has been well publicised, he's suffering from carpal tunnel,
yeah.
And he's having to drop out occasionally. And the weird thing is that Charlie Benante could stop playing drums for Anthrax, but still be in the band as the main songwriter.
Yeah, because he could just be, have Gene Hoglan or whoever, play the drums to the band. He writes all the songs. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I guess probably I would think that the carpal tunnel would also affect his ability to play guitar night in, night out. But
yeah.
But otherwise, he can take over those duties. It's like, but probably the same issues. I mean, I'm thinking it's going to be. And who knows? Maybe playing guitar and drums combined is what as much as he has, is perhaps contributed to the his developing carpal tunnel syndrome, which is a shame because I mean he's a guy that. Talk about. I mean, I've never heard a recording, a live, recording or bootleg where Charlie was having an off night. And whereas, to be frank, I mean, Lars, of course, gets abused for his sort of shakiness live, especially with the faster thrasher and certainly the double bass perspective. But if you go back to, I mentioned Decade of Aggression before. That's not a good Dave Lombardo performance. From a double bass standpoint on that album, on that tour, and he's absolutely the first to admit it. Like he was just he attributed it to, others started setting up his drums and they set the drum, the throne too high so he couldn't play to his best. And that, only when he was out of Slayer and he was just sort of doing things on his own did he finally figure all that out. And of course, I mean, think about, Dave and Slayer the second go around. I mean, he was, just completely separated himself from any other drummer. I mean, in the genre from a night in, night out performance. But Charlie Benante, I've never heard him have a bad night. I mean, are as high as Dave's? I mean, from a thrash standpoint, no, but I mean, he's as rock solid as anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it also, you've got to, I think it's very easy to forget the impact that SOD had back in the day.
And on the absolutely, I mean, and not just, I mean, in the series, the first, like those, I think those 7 episodes covering the first 5 years of Anthrax. There's an episode devoted to SOD because that's, was recorded when they were recording Spreading the Disease. And there, I mean, another thing, I mean, you just how innovative and how enduring the innovation was on that album. I mean, it's not, I don't know that it's, and I think he said it too, he's not necessarily the first to do blast beats, but among the first to just have those, those type of songs, where, like really crossover thrash, inching thrash closer to hardcore, and just, with these short blasts of these songs. I mean, and yeah, I mean, that's absolutely, I mean, Charlie is in the, sort of the epicenter of a lot. As far as this music,
yeah, and it's just I still remember the first time Gaz turned up at my house, who was the original guitarist in Acid Rain and plays on the first 2 albums, and he turned up at my house. Me and him were like peas in a pod, and we were always playing each other's stuff. I remember him coming around my house, and he goes, "All right, I've got this thing SOD. I'm gonna play you this. It's two of Anthrax and the guy and the bass player from the first Anthrax album, and some bloke singing." And I was like, "Right, okay, cool." And he put it on, and when March of the SOD comes in, I was just like, my jaw just hit the fucking floor.
Yeah, and it's one of those great albums in that it's like just opening, like the first track being that, and then progress and being sequenced as it is. It's sequenced like it's a concert, because what better way to start a show than March of the SOD? I mean, concert. I love the moment where, like, right before the band goes on, the house lights are on. When those house lights fade out, it's like, to me, that's like the peak of the show, right? All right, it's about to start. And then to hear March of the SOD come in at that point, I mean, you'd be going absolutely ape shit.
Oh man, I would lose my fucking mind. I mean, I remember when Live at Budokan came out, and it was just that just made it even more kind of like, shit. I wish I'd got the chance to see these guys, because it just would have been.
And Billy Milano, I mean, is there a bigger absolute nut job? He's like the one.
You've just reminded me of something, right? Absolutely, Billy Milano, SOD, all of us in Acid Rain, big SOD fans, and then MOD coming out and all the rest of it. And we're playing with Exodus at the Astoria in London, and it's on the Fabulous Disaster tour. And we're all playing, and we're all into our gig, headbanging, all the rest of it. I suddenly get a tap on the shoulder, and it's Kev, our guitarist, and I'm kind of looking at him, and he just points side stage, and I look side stage, and there is fucking Billy Milano, fucking watching us, fucking banging his head with a big smile on his face. Louis, the guitarist, is with him, and they're both just like stood there, big smiles on our faces. And as soon as the song finishes, I just goes, "Hey guys, we've got a special guest." I was like, "There's no way I'm fucking leaving him stood side stage." I went, "Hey guys, we've got a special guest. Come on out here, it's Billy Milano," and everyone was just like, SOD, SOD, SOD. It was just fucking unbelievable. I actually ended up getting becoming quite friendly with him after that. After the show, he was like, "Oh man, that was really cool of you. Thank you very much." I was like, "Yeah, no worries." And then when MOD toured over here, I met up with him again, and he was like, "Oh, dude from Acid Rain, yeah, cool." And we got to hang out a bit, and they came over here a few times, and I ended up becoming quite good friends with Louis, the guitarist, as well, who went on to be in Mindfunk, and Mindfunk with the support on the Slayer Decade of Aggression tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, they were in the UK and Europe, so so it was really cool, because Louis got me on several guest lists on that tour, so I was like very, I saw a few of those Slayer shows, But yeah, having like just looking side stage and seeing Billy Milano, man, that was just.
Is there any more motivation? I mean, it's funny. I mean, you could be like, all right, yeah, there's bigger people. There's Ozzy, could have been side stage, Hetfield, somebody, but it's like Milano has got that element. I like it similar to like Paul Bailoff in that. There's an added level of unpredictability and danger in them. In that, like, Paul Bailoff in those early Exodus recordings is talking about, telling the crowd to like kill posers.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he meant it. It's like Milano likewise. I mean, he's some of the stories in Scott Ian's book. I mean, he's fighting just vicious beat downs. I mean, of people. I mean, and then you talk, with the live at the Budokan, there's, the video too, when he jumps off like those high speakers and, just absolute no regard for himself. And then there's some guy, he's berating some guy in the crowd at some point who's like, he's like, I forget, there's probably someone hurt in the crowd and maybe somebody said something derogatory and he's like, and he just breaks out. He's like, no, motherfucker, he was my fucking friend. It's like this totally like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think around that era, no one beat up more of their own fans than Billy Milano.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, and that's what makes it great is where you have that it adds to that sort of the danger to it, where you're like, all right, this isn't just someone up there, putting on an act. I mean, Billy's Billy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, no, this dude is fucking for real. Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, whenever I was in his company and whenever I spent any time with him, it was very mild mannered, very respectful, and you could almost say a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, you're like, where's Billy? Where's the guy I know?
Yeah, it's like, Joe, come on, aim a punch at me or something,
Yeah, you want to egg him on. You want to what can I do to piss him off?
Yeah. This nice, kind, reasonable bloke is a bit of a fucking letdown.
And it's, at the same time, it's like you said, it almost goes converse to what I had said, that like Billy's Billy. At the same time, I don't think the Billy that's up there, that doesn't make me think, though, because he's mild-mannered when you're interacting with him, that the Billy up there that's a nut job getting in the fight is fake. No, it's just like these two opposite parts of his personality, and they're both Billy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a diabetic as well, so occasionally, he gets low blood sugar and that, and he that changes his personality. But like I said, a really nice guy. Look, what I want to do at this point, my friend, despite the fact you've got no friends, what I'm going to do at this point is let's wrap this up and then let's have a chat for our mutual patrons.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool, man. Stay there, but for the meantime, thank you very much. It's been really good fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. That is that's the final interview. That is my friend, No Friender. Seriously, great podcast to get hold of. He goes deep on thrash. I mean, there is just like tons of episodes. There's episodes on violence, as in the band. There is, there's like 4 or 5 part series. It's a really good podcast. I can't recommend it enough, especially if thrash is your chosen genre of music, because he just goes so deep. Very, very knowledgeable. Really does his research. It's like the opposite of me, really. Does loads of research and knows what he's talking about. I just get away with having a big mouth. So do check it out. That is the Thrash Metal Podcast. Okay, it's part of the When It Was Cool network. So search in your podcast apps, look for that, or just Google it, and you'll find it. You shouldn't be able to find it. You should find it, no problem. Some people have said they've found it difficult to find, but whenever I put it in a search engine, it seems to come up okay. So check that shit out. Support Metal Podcasts wherever you can, people. He's also got a Patreon page as well. Well, when it was cool, has got a Patreon thing as well. So check it all out. It's as always, it's a pleasure to be in your ears. I really do appreciate it. Nice long podcast this time. Really wanted to give you guys a nice big chunky one. I've bumped into a few of you. I've done the spoken word show, and there was some bollockers in who even shouted bollocks back, which was fucking awesome. I haven't spoken about that really, have I? Yeah, the London spoken word show was really, really cool. That was an hour and a half that just absolutely flew by. It was great fun. I think everybody there enjoyed themselves. A big thank you to Oliver Hines from Metal Underground, who reviewed the show, which was awesome. Interviewed me about Acid Rain before the show. Bought a ticket and came to the show and did a review. I mean, wow, can't ask for any more than that. So thanks a lot for that, Oliver. I'm working on hopefully a Newcastle show, and there is a Leeds show. It is coming up very soon. So, do you know what? I don't think have I done a plug for that? I'm not sure. Friday, November the 2nd, Damnation Festival weekend in Leeds. Go to Crash Records website, and you will be able to get tickets there. So I'm doing my spoken word show on Friday the 2nd. It's an early show. I think it's going to start about 6:30, 7 o'clock. So, you can listen to me moan on for a bit, and then, go and have a decent night out afterwards if you want. And the spoken word show in Camden was great. Thank you to everybody who showed up to that. Really did appreciate it, including Miles from Dry Heave. That was awesome. It was good to see you, mate. Everybody at the Etc. Theatre was really cool to deal with. And so hopefully going back there in January for the live podcast with Godless. So I will announce that as soon as possible. Patreon subscribers will be the ones to first find out. But also, it's very limited tickets on that one because it's a very small theatre. So if you want to come, as soon as you see the link posted, make sure you get your tickets because it is very small. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to sell it out. So fans of mine, fans of Godless, fans of Talking Bollocks, please do turn up in your hundreds and support the podcast. So it's been great, absolutely great as always. Lovely to speak to you. Are you all right? Are you? How's the last month been? Really? Oh, right, okay. Well, good luck with that. Sorry to hear that. Or alternatively, oh really? Oh, that's great. Oh, really pleased to hear that. Or alternatively, really? Yeah. Comme ci, comme ça, c'est la vie, and other things I don't understand. But it's I always feel like I am talking to you rather than at you. I know sometimes it might feel like I am really fucking talking at you, but I do try and talk to you. And if anybody got any questions or any topics you want me to cover in the podcast, let me know. I did have some subjects that a few people wanted me to cover on this, and I know I know one of them was Metallica tickets and stuff like that. And obviously we've done that. That was it. Yes. KK Downing dragging Andy Sneap into the fucking row. This is something else that Andy Pilkington and I talked to, but it's just like, I don't get it. I don't get why he's still going on about not being asked to come back to the band. For a start, there's the rejection you feel as a band member when someone leaves. It's like splitting up with somebody, So when they leave, you feel rejected. It's as simple as that. And the other thing is that I'm pretty sure he left because he didn't want to tour anymore. So surely he's going to be the last person you'd think of. You're not going to get somebody who's told you to fuck off and told you to fuck off because he doesn't want to tour anymore. He's not going to be your go-to guy for the next time you need somebody to play guitar on tour, is he? Really? And they've called Andy Sneap he called him a carbon copy of him. Really? It's passed you by that Andy Sneap is one of Heavy Metal's top 5 producers and has produced the last at least 2 Priest albums that I'm aware of, knows the band inside out, knew the material of the new album, and only had 2 weeks to work it all out and get cracking. I mean, you know, sorry KK, but you keep fucking moaning and it just makes you sound like a sad, jealous old man. So there you go. That's my feelings on that. Anyway, guys, it's always a pleasure. It's never a chore. I am going to finish off with some music, and I was wondering what music to finish off with, and I thought, well, it can't be Eminem because he's very litigious on YouTube, and the podcast will probably end up getting blocked. So instead, what I'm going to do is play out with, yeah, why not? That's right, a band I don't like. Well, why the hell not? I'm a bit of a fucking contrarian, aren't I? So why not just keep it up? Yeah, that's right. I'm going to finish with some Alien Weaponry. Some of you may be inspired to go and listen to the album after hearing this, or you may be inspired to not be bothered. I mean, I don't know. So, yeah. I'm just thinking, right, I'm going for the song Whispers. Okay, right, I'm going for the song Whispers. And so you can, see what you think to him. Let me know or don't. You know, to be honest, I don't give a shit. But anyway, it's always a pleasure. It's never a chore. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care wherever you are. Look after yourself. And finishing this month's podcast, this is Alien Weaponry and Whispers.